Chapter 782. After Tang Ao forced Huang He's violent spirit force onto his finger, Tang Ao's finger flashed with a blade light, and his finger was cut open. Then, Tang Ao used a drop of blood essence to draw the spirit force out of his body. After the violent spirit force flew into the air along with Tang Ao's drop of blood essence, Tang Ao threw out a fireball without hesitation, turning his drop of blood essence and the violent spirit force into nothingness. After Huang He's soul seed was forced out by Tang Ao and burned to ashes, Huang He, who was still hesitating about whether or not to go down, spat out a mouthful of blood. Just a moment ago, when Tang Ao escaped into the oceanic trench, Huang He saw Tang Ao take out a huge cauldron. It was also that huge cauldron that blocked Huang He's final attack. In Huang He's opinion, that huge cauldron must be very powerful. Therefore, Tang Ao dared to use it to rush into the oceanic trench. But now, Huang He knew that he was wrong. Tang Ao didn't plan to rush into the trench, but he was forced into a dead end by Huang He. That's why he took the risk to rush into the trench. At this moment, the soul seed he planted in Tang Ao's body had dissipated, so there was only one possibility. Tang Ao was already dead. As for Tang Ao, he sensed his soul seed and forced it out. If Tang Ao was at his peak, Huang He felt that there was a slight possibility. But Tang Ao had been seriously injured by him before, so how could he still have the ability to force out his soul seed? However, Huang He didn't know that the huge tremor at the trench entrance caused Tang Ao's blood to surge, and the soul seed he planted in Tang Ao's body was triggered ahead of time. Looking at the trench that was constantly spewing out nether stones, Huang He hesitated again and again, but in the end, he didn't rashly enter. Just now, Tang Ao's big cauldron was able to block his all-out attack. Under the protection of that big cauldron, Tang Ao was strangled to death. Huang He didn't think that the few defensive spiritual tools he had were more powerful than Tang Ao's cauldron. Shaking his head, Huang He disappeared with a sway of his body. Huang He did not give up on entering the trench, but he wanted to find someone. This person was a true disciple of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. Not long ago, Huang He told Tang Ao that he was the only one who survived after entering the 3 sacred ruins. He was lying to Tang Ao. In reality, apart from the 3 unlucky fellows who had been ambushed by them, everyone else who had entered the Triple Saint ruins for the first time had come out. However, there was something strange about the Triple Saints ruins. Until now, none of them had discovered its secrets. The person Huang He was looking for was Qin Yueshuang. She was also the person who had entered the Triple Saints ruins.
The reason why he was looking for Qin Yueshuang was because Qin Yueshuang had somehow obtained a defensive treasure, the Chaos Origin Umbrella. Huang He was sure that Qin Yueshuang's primeval Chaos Umbrella could block the terrifying turbulence in the trench. As long as he had Qin Yueshuang's help, there would be no problem for him to enter the trench. After Tang Ao forced out Huang He's soul seed, his injuries rapidly recovered with the elixir and the jade bone life soul. His broken bones reformed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his surging qi and blood flowed evenly and evenly. His damaged organs also slowly recovered, and the vitality in his body gradually became stronger. In less than an hour, Tang Ao's injuries were almost healed. After recovering from his injuries, Tang Ao was a little worried about Enruosu. Although he had tried his best to delay Huang He at the bottom of the sea, the difference in strength between him and Huang He was too great. He did not manage to delay Huang He for long before he was seriously injured by Huang He. Chapter 783. Tang Ao rested on the square for a while, then began to look around. Previously, Tang Ao had already observed the situation in the trench, but it was only now that Tang Ao could take a closer look around. Not far from Tang Ao, there was a pile of high-grade underworld stones and a portion of peak-grade underworld stones. Although he was a little anxious, Tang Ao did not immediately collect these underworld stones. Instead, he circled around the pile for a long time. Dong, a whirlpool in the depths of the trench, swept a piece of peak-grade underworld stone over. Because Tang Ao was too close to the pile of underworld stones, this underworld stone coincidentally smashed onto Tang Ao's head. Tang Ao smiled and started to observe this underworld stone. As soon as the underworld stone entered his hand, a warm feeling immediately spread through his hand. It was as if Tang Ao wasn't holding a piece of nether stone, but a piece of top-grade jade. Tang Ao activated the ancient god-moving sky technique, and the spiritual energy within the underworld stone was slowly absorbed by Tang Ao. The spiritual energy within this underworld stone was extremely vast, and soon, a cracking sound came from within Tang Ao's body. Tang Ao understood that this was the sound of a realm's profound gate shattering. Hearing this sound, it meant that Tang Ao could break through to the life and death realm. Tang Ao had been stuck at the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing for a long time. This time, Tang Ao could finally break through to the life and death realm. Tang Ao did not hesitate to take dozens of peak-grade underworld stones from the pile, then sat cross-legged on the ground and started to break through to the next realm. After preparing to break through to the next realm, Tang Ao suddenly thought of something. Immediately, Tang Ao took out a crystal with a refreshing aura. This crystal was called the Broken Jade Crystal, and it was a treasure to awaken the hidden jade body in stone. Tang Ao originally thought that this kind of crystal only existed in legends. Therefore, even though Tang Ao had searched for it in his previous life, he still could not find it. He did not expect to find it in the underworld Emperor's secret realm in this life. Tang Ao exerted a little force, and the broken jade crystal was crushed by Tang Ao. Immediately, the warm current within the broken jade crystal flowed into Tang Ao's body. The moment the broken jade crystal's warm current entered Tang Ao's body, Tang Ao discovered that he had entered a mysterious state. At this moment, Tang Ao felt that something in his body was about to be awakened. Even his body was a little excited. Tang Ao did not know what the hidden jade and stone body would look like after awakening, but Tang Ao was still looking forward to it. Above the netherworld sea, Anruosu desperately steered the spirit boat toward the ruins of the Three Saints. Meanwhile, Huang He followed closely behind Anruosu. Huang He hadn't expected Anruosu to be so bold. After escaping, she didn't run in the direction she had come from. Instead, she headed in the direction of the Three Saint ruins. That was why Huang He had chased Anruosu in the wrong direction. Plop! Huang He was once again drawn into the netherworld sea by the strange suction force. Even though the seawater of the netherworld sea could not corrode him, he still could not fly above the netherworld sea for a long time. After falling into the netherworld sea, Huang He shook off the suction force of the netherworld sea and continued to chase after Anruosu. Naturally, Tang Ao did not know that Anruosu was in danger. At this moment, Tang Ao was still next to the pile of netherstones, trying to break through to the life and death realm. Streams of spiritual power were constantly attracted to Tang Ao, and spiritual power from all directions was constantly gathering around Tang Ao. Traces of faint purple spiritual power also flowed into Tang Ao's body from the pile of netherstones behind Tang Ao. Chapter 784. After Tang Ao expended the 2 supreme-grade netherstones, Tang Ao's cultivation level still hadn't broken through to the life and death realm. Not only did his cultivation level not break through to the life and death realm, but even Tang Ao's limbs and bones began to collapse. After sensing this change, Tang Ao was somewhat anxious. He wanted to stop, but his body was completely out of his control. At that moment, Tang Ao's consciousness was extremely clear. The constant pain from his body nearly made Tang Ao faint. At that moment, Tang Ao felt like he had suffered the cruelest torture in time. His body felt like it was being sliced into powder by countless sharp blades. Crack! Crack! Tang Ao's recently healed bones shattered inch by inch. The Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul tried its best to repair the damage, but the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul's recovery speed clearly couldn't keep up with the speed at which his bones shattered. Tang Ao felt blood seeping out of his skin as his flesh and blood were constantly disappearing. Tang Ao was extremely anxious in his heart. Could it be that I'm going to fall here after going through so much trouble? However, no matter what Tang Ao did, he couldn't control his body. At that moment, Tang Ao's body didn't seem to have anything to do with him. However, the heart-wrenching pain constantly stimulated Tang Ao, making Tang Ao experience the process with extreme clarity. In Tang Ao's consciousness, his legs had already turned into specks of light and disappeared. However, the dissipation didn't dissipate. It continued corroding Tang Ao's body. At that moment, all the parts below Tang Ao's waist had dissipated, but not a single drop of blood flowed out of Tang Ao's body. It was as though there was no blood in Tang Ao's body. On the nether sea, Huang He struck out with his palm. Not far away, Enruosu was sent flying from the spirit boat by Huang He. Without waiting for Enruosu to fall into the sea, Huang He struck out with his palm again. This little girl had made him suffer on the nether sea. It would be difficult to appease the hatred in Huang He's heart if he didn't torture her to death. After this palm strike landed on Enruosu, Huang He immediately activated the soul seed contained in the palm strike. In an instant, Enruosu's face turned pale. Then, she clearly felt her bones shatter inch by inch. Her meridians were all shattered, and her internal organs were damaged to varying degrees. Enruosu knew that she could not hold on any longer. At that moment, Enruosu felt regretful. She regretted being too weak. She didn't even have the chance to avenge Tang Ao. When she saw Huang He chasing after her, Enruosu knew that Tang Ao must have been forced into the Netherworld Sea by Huang He. Tang Ao must have gone into the Netherworld Sea to buy himself time to escape. It was just that she was too weak, so she didn't run far after such a long time. Enruosu looked down at the massive vortex below, and a poignant smile appeared on her face. There weren't many whirlpools like this on the Netherworld Sea. Enruosu had seen a martial artist get shredded to pieces by such a whirlpool before, and that whirlpool was only 1/10 the size of this one. Although Enruosu would definitely be killed by the whirlpool, Huang He still struck out with his palm in anger. However, before Huang He's palm strike could reach Enruosu, it was shattered by a black-robed figure. After shattering Huang He's palm strike, the black-robed figure reached out to save Enruosu. However, before he could grab Enruosu, Huang He rushed over and slashed out with his saber. Chapter 785. If Tang Ao were an astral-reaching realm martial artist, then Tang Ao would still think that he was in the state of a soul. But now, Tang Ao had not even reached the life and death realm, so it was impossible for him to have a soul. While Tang Ao was puzzled, Tang Ao was surprised to find that his dissipating body was gradually condensing again. His soul power was also gradually awakening and growing bit by bit. On the Netherworld Sea, because of Huang He's interference, the black-clothed man did not manage to save Enruosu, causing her to be sucked into the whirlpool. However, the moment Enruosu was sucked into the whirlpool, she threw the storage ring that Tang Ao had given her to the black-clothed man who had saved her. Enruosu knew that she was definitely going to die, and that Tang Ao was most likely dead as well. In the last moments of her life, Enruosu felt that the person who had saved her should not be a bad person. Both Tang Ao and herself had been killed by Huang He. By giving the cultivation resources that Tang Ao had left behind to this black-clothed man, the black-clothed man might even be able to help Tang Ao and herself get revenge if he succeeded in his cultivation. At that moment, Enruosu recalled the scene of her previous life in her dream. Then, her consciousness froze in that scene and she fell into darkness. The black-clothed man grabbed the storage ring that Enruosu had thrown at him and looked at Huang He coldly. Although Huang He had killed Enruosu in the end, he still looked at the black-clothed man in front of him with an unfriendly expression. This was because Huang He had also seen Enruosu throw the storage ring to the black-clothed man. "Who are you? How dare you meddle in my business? My name is Donkswini. Remember it. After saying that, Donkswini did not bother with Huang He. His figure flashed and disappeared. Donkswini was now at the third level of the life and death realm, but he still did not have much confidence in facing Huang He, who was at the fifth level of the life and death realm. Moreover, Donkswini had discovered a treasure land called the Three Saints' Ruins. Donkswini planned to cultivate there for a period of time before coming to settle the score with Huang He. In the trench in the depths of the Netherworld Sea, countless light spots kept gathering on Tang Ao's body. Tang Ao's body, which had dissipated not long ago, started to solidify bit by bit. At this moment, Tang Ao's soul power had already recovered a little. Tang Ao could clearly feel that his soul power was increasing, but he still couldn't control his body. In addition, Tang Ao could feel his body solidifying bit by bit, but this body did not seem to be his. He could clearly feel it, but he just couldn't control it. Tang Ao glanced at the pile of underworld stones behind him. When he saw all the top-grade underworld stones around him turn into ashes, Tang Ao was very shocked. But at this moment, Tang Ao looked at the pile of nether stones that he had almost used up. Tang Ao's consciousness was a little sluggish. Previously, Tang Ao remembered that these underworld stones were piled up like a small mountain. Tang Ao roughly estimated that there were at least 1,000,000 underworld stones. Moreover, these underworld stones were not ordinary. They were all top-grade ones, and some were even top-grade ones. But now, this mountain-like pile of underworld stones was about to be completely used up by him. In addition, Tang Ao also noticed that not only the pile of underworld stones behind him, but even the pile not far away from him had also been used up by him by half. Tang Ao originally thought that with so many underworld stones, it would not be a problem for him to cultivate to the peak of the astral-reaching realm. But now, not only had Tang Ao not cultivated to the peak of the astral-reaching realm, he was still at the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Chapter 786. As time passed, Tang Ao felt as though he had been trying his best for tens of thousands of years. At this moment, his body had already reached its peak, and his soul power was unprecedentedly strong. Even his consciousness was much clearer than before. However, what shocked Tang Ao was that his cultivation was still stuck at the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. He still hadn't stepped into the life and death realm. In this long period of time, the underworld stone pile behind Tang Ao had been completely used up by him. Not far from Tang Ao, there were only a few pieces of underworld stone left. Further away, the underworld stone pile was also about to be emptied. The underworld stones in this plaza had been accumulated for tens of thousands of years, but now these underworld stones had been mercilessly wasted by Tang Ao. As Tang Ao crazily used up the underworld stones on the plaza, the martial artists searching for underworld stones near the Nethersea also discovered that the number of underworld stones in the Nethersea was decreasing. Originally, they could still find some underworld stones at the edge of the Nethersea. But now it wasn't easy to find underworld stones in the depths of the Nethersea. Everyone had the misconception that the Nether stones had all been plundered by them. After running out of underworld stones, many people's cultivation speed slowed down. Compared to the outside of the Netherworld Emperor's mystic realm, this cultivation speed was still tremendous. However, how could the martial artists, who were used to using underworld stones, tolerate this tortoise-like cultivation speed? Hence, many martial artists formed groups and entered the depths of the Nethersea. Every day there would be martial artists passing by the sea above Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao didn't know that these people were passing by, and these martial artists didn't know that there was a strange trench that spat out underworld stones. After an unknown period of time, Tang Ao was bored to death as he watched the huge whirlpool in the depths of the trench pull out the underworld stones. Suddenly, Tang Ao felt his body shake, and then his consciousness disappeared. After his consciousness disappeared, Tang Ao's body also stopped absorbing the underworld stone's spiritual power. Tang Ao didn't know what happened. After a long period of time, he only felt that his body was a little numb. Tang Ao shuddered and opened his eyes. Yes, Tang Ao's consciousness had finally returned to his body after disappearing, and this body had also undergone earth-shattering changes. At that moment, Tang Ao's cultivation base had finally broken through to the life and death realm. However, this was not the biggest change. The biggest change was that none of the life souls that Tang Ao had awakened were there. It was as though Tang Ao had reincarnated. In addition, what shocked Tang Ao even more was that a vast and boundless soul sea had appeared in his dantian. On the soul sea, there were 9 jade platforms with golden dragons revolving around them. When Tang Ao sensed this scene, Tang Ao suddenly had an epiphany. The change this time was caused by the advancement of the hidden jade body in stone. The hidden jade body in stone was a powerful physique that could not be built without destruction. Now, Tang Ao had completely awakened his hidden jade body in stone. Furthermore, Tang Ao's physique was no longer the hidden jade body in stone, but the more powerful 9 dragons Empyrean jade body. The 9 jade platforms above the soul sea were called the 9 dragons jade platforms. These 9 jade platforms could be used to awaken an Empyrean life soul. As for the vast soul sea below, it could allow Tang Ao to awaken more life souls to roam in the soul sea. After knowing the changes in his body, Tang Ao was overjoyed. Although Tang Ao didn't have a single life soul, Tang Ao was certain that, as long as he was willing, it wouldn't be a problem for him to awaken a 29th firmament life soul. Chapter 787. At the bottom of the trench was a huge whirlpool, from which pieces of underworld stones would be spilled out from time to time. Most of these underworld stones were low-grade ones. The higher the grade, the lesser the quantity. Since Tang Ao didn't use up the underworld stones like before, the number of underworld stones around Tang Ao was slowly increasing. After using up the extreme grade underworld stone in his palm, Tang Ao's cultivation base had completely stabilized at the first level of life and death realm. Looking at the depleted extreme grade underworld stone in his hand, Tang Ao had a bitter expression on his face. As a peak astral reaching realm 9th level warrior in his previous life, Tang Ao naturally knew how frightening the spirit power contained in such an extreme grade underworld stone would be. Based on Tang Ao's previous life's cultivation experience, with so many underworld stones, it wouldn't be much of a problem for him to cultivate from the 1st level to the 5th level. However, right now, he had used up an extreme grade underworld stone just to stabilize his cultivation base at the 1st level of life and death realm. In the future, Tang Ao would find it hard to imagine how much cultivation resources he would need to use. However, Tang Ao also knew that his current life and death realm 1st level was more than 10 times stronger than his previous life's life and death realm 1st level. If Tang Ao were to encounter Huang He again, Tang Ao had full confidence that he could make Huang He stay. Not only because of the increase in strength, but also because of the primordial sacred sky bow and farmer god cauldron in his hands. Tang Ao was sure that Huang He didn't have any powerful weapons on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been suppressed by his weapons back then. After stabilizing his cultivation base at the 1st level of life and death realm, Tang Ao continued to sit cross-legged. Tang Ao slightly closed his eyes, and his divine soul continued to condense. Soon, the scene in front of Tang Ao changed, and Tang Ao once again arrived in the Great Thousand World. Ever since entering the Underworld Emperor's secret realm, although Tang Ao had entered the Great Thousand World several times, he hadn't awakened a high-level life spirit. During this period of time, Tang Ao had encountered too many things, so he didn't have the time to awaken his life soul in the major Kiliacosm. Although Tang Ao was worried about Enruosu, the life souls Tang Ao had previously awakened had all vanished. Therefore, Tang Ao had no choice but to come here to awaken his life soul again. Although Tang Ao was strong now, without his life soul, Tang Ao's strength was greatly reduced. Xiao! A divine light from beyond the heavens descended into the depths of the netherworld sea. Many cultivators on the netherworld sea turned to look. The grade of this divine light from outer space wasn't very high. It seemed to be a 23rd firmament life soul. If he were in the black-yellow continent, being able to awaken a 23rd heaven life soul would be very enviable. However, in the netherworld Emperor mystic realm, everyone's cultivation level had increased by leaps and bounds. It was common for someone to awaken a 21st firmament life soul. The reason why everyone was surprised was because the person who had awakened the netherworld sea had actually chosen to awaken in the depths of the netherworld sea. This was somewhat suspicious. However, there were too many unfathomable things in the netherworld Emperor's secret realm. Therefore, not many people paid attention to this matter. However, as the second and third divine light descended, it attracted the attention of some people. Awakening 2 life souls in a row wasn't difficult for some talented or powerful cultivators. However, awakening 3 life souls in a row was a little thought-provoking. However, before everyone could be surprised, the sky was like a meteor shower. Divine light from outer space streaked across the sky of the netherworld sea and descended into the depths of the netherworld sea. Chapter 788. As the divine light from outer space continued to descend, figures rushed to the edge of the nether sea. Then, everyone boarded the spirit boat and rushed to the depths of the nether sea. If there was really a warrior awakening a life soul, it meant that the warrior had a huge secret. Typically, warriors could awaken a limited number of life souls. Typically, there were 29 life souls. After awakening 29 life souls, it was extremely difficult to awaken each life soul. There were even rumors that 29 life souls was the limit of ordinary warriors. Only genius warriors who could break through this limit could reach the supreme realm. Even Tang Ao had only awakened 30 life souls in his previous life. And now, in the black-yellow continent, the few people at the peak had only awakened 29 life souls. It was because of this that the divine light from outer space that constantly flashed in the depths of the nether sea attracted everyone's interest. For these martial artists, every additional life soul would increase their strength by a few notches. It was unknown what kind of opportunity the mysterious warrior in the depths of the nether sea had obtained to awaken his life soul. As the person involved, Tang Ao naturally realized that he had caused too much of a commotion. Tang Ao had originally planned on awakening the Jade Bone Vitality life soul, but the moment Tang Ao came to the boundless world, the life souls he had previously awakened automatically communicated with him. Therefore, the streams of light from outer space were instilled into Tang Ao's body one after another. However, Tang Ao was somewhat puzzled. After these life souls were awakened by him, they all appeared in his soul sea. Up to now, none of them had landed on the Emperor Jade platform. Even the Mora Bone Dagger life soul that Tang Ao had high hopes for only stayed on the Emperor Jade platform for a moment before it was squeezed down. In a short while, 14 of the 15 life souls that Tang Ao had previously awakened appeared in Tang Ao's soul sea. Tang Ao wanted the Jade Bone Vitality life soul to occupy a seat on the Emperor Jade platform, but it was like the Mora Bone Dagger. It stayed on the Emperor Jade platform for a moment before it was squeezed down. Buzz! A golden light flashed. Tang Ao's last life soul, the Battle Sage Bone life soul, had awakened. The Battle Sage Bone life soul was the 27th firmament life soul, so it was the last to awaken. However, to Tang Ao's surprise, the Battle Sage Bone life soul appeared on an Emperor Jade platform with a golden flash. Furthermore, it sat cross-legged on the Emperor Jade platform as stable as a rock. Apart from that, the aura of the Battle Sage Bone life soul quickly became stronger and was constantly growing. Tang Ao could clearly sense the improvement of the Battle Saint Bone Life Soul. In just a few minutes, the Battle Saint Bone Life Soul's aura had strengthened significantly. After the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul completely absorbed the golden aura condensed by the Emperor Jade platform, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul advanced to the 29th Firmament Life Soul. Tang Ao was overjoyed. The most powerful life spirit he had in his previous life was only the 29th sky. However, when he had awakened the 29th sky, he had already reached the peak of Astral Reaching Realm Level 9. And in this life, he was only at the first layer of life and death realm. In terms of life soul alone, his achievements in this life had already surpassed those of his previous life. Chapter 789. Looking at the green lotus sword soul that had suddenly bloomed, Tang Ao was a little surprised. Previously, Tang Ao thought that the green lotus sword soul's grade was too low and it didn't even have any thoughts of competing for the 9 Dragons Emperor's Jade platform. Now, Tang Ao understood that the green lotus sword soul had been accumulating its power for this last fight. After the green lotus sword soul bloomed, it immediately turned into 7 sharp swords that circled around the 9 Dragon, the Arch Jade platform. Also, the green lotus sword soul was the same as the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. It was also as stable as a rock and wasn't repelled by the 9 Dragon, the Arch Jade platform at all. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao understood. The 9 Dragon, the Arch Jade platform seemed to only be occupied by special life souls. Or rather, only life souls that were recognized by the 9 Dragon, the Arch Jade platform could occupy a seat on the Jade platform. Tang Ao saw that after the green lotus sword soul occupied a Jade platform, the golden aura on the Jade platform constantly gathered towards the green lotus sword soul. The green lotus sword soul absorbed all the aura and also reached the 29th level of life soul. Tang Ao was overjoyed. In his previous life, he only had one 29th level life soul. Now, he had 2 29th level life souls. Besides that, the other life souls swimming in the soul sea were also constantly improving. After seeing this scene, Tang Ao was somewhat happy, but at the same time, he was somewhat worried. Although his soul sea looked vast, with the constant consumption of these life souls, there would definitely be a day when it would dry up. The soul power in the soul sea was constantly being consumed. With Tang Ao's soul power recovery speed, it was far from the speed of soul power consumption. Just as Tang Ao was thinking about this, the chaotic hex light mirror suddenly moved. Now that Tang Ao's strength had greatly improved, the moment the chaotic hex light mirror moved, Tang Ao permeated the chaotic hex light mirror with his soul power. Immediately, Tang Ao saw a golden holy ball of light in the chaotic hex light mirror. This ball of light gave off a vast, majestic and sacred feeling. Tang Ao also saw a jade slip fly out from the ball of light. With a flash of light, the jade slip appeared in Tang Ao's hand. High One Soul Refining Technique. Tang Ao looked at the contents of the jade slip in shock. He didn't know what rank this supreme soul refining art was, but it wasn't used to cultivate spiritual power, but to cultivate soul power. In his 2 lives, this was the first time Tang Ao had seen a technique that specialized in cultivating soul power. Moreover, this soul power cultivation method did not conflict with Tang Ao's spiritual power cultivation method. In other words, Tang Ao could cultivate both cultivation methods. Tang Ao looked at the contents of the Greater One Soul Refining Technique with great interest, and the more he read, the more shocked he became. According to the records of the High One Soul Refining Art, a martial artist who cultivated their soul power to the great success stage would possess a power that was not inferior to a martial artist who cultivated spiritual power. With the refining technique, Tang Ao Soul Refining Technique, Tang Ao Spirit Lotus. According to Refining Ao Spirit Ao, Long Dragon Lotus, C. Dragon, Tang Ao Dragon Dragon Power, the Dragon, Ao Dragon Lotus Spirit Dragon C. Soul Aot. Also, with the High One Soul refining technique, Tang Ao could nourish the fate souls in his soul sea. Even though he knew it wasn't a good place to stay, Tang Ao couldn't help but start cultivating the High One Soul refining technique. After Tang Ao used the High One Soul refining technique to circulate his spiritual energy, a special wave that couldn't be seen by the naked eye gathered towards Tang Ao. After the special energy circulated in Tang Ao's body, it turned into drops of purple liquid and entered his soul sea. Although the liquid was like a drop of water on a burning cart of firewood for Tang Ao's soul sea, Tang Ao could clearly feel that his soul sea was getting stronger, and his soul sea was constantly being replenished. Chapter 790. Thanks to the natural barrier at the entrance of the trench, Tang Ao wasn't worried that someone would come down to find trouble with him. Although Tang Ao knew that he had caused quite a commotion not long ago, Tang Ao felt that he was in the depths of the netherworld sea. The extraterrestrial divine light had disappeared in less than 30 breaths of time, so even if it attracted the attention of others, no one should be able to find this place. Therefore, after Tang Ao continued to cultivate the Tai Soul refining technique for a while, he began to collect the underworld stones on the square. After his constitution had advanced to the 9 Dragon Emperor's Jade platform, the cultivation resources needed would definitely be a terrifying number. If Tang Ao wanted to maintain a normal cultivation speed in the future, he would need a lot of resources. These underworld stones were undoubtedly very good cultivation resources. Therefore, after Tang Ao collected all the underworld stones on the square, he went directly to the huge whirlpool at the bottom of the trench. This whirlpool had been spinning here for hundreds of millions of years, but there was no sign of it stopping. After Tang Ao came to the side of the whirlpool, dozens of streams of light flew out of the whirlpool. Tang Ao was quick to react. Dozens of spiritual power hand seals reached out at the same time and caught all the streams of light. However, a huge impact rushed over and sent Tang Ao flying back to the square. The impact just now was not only powerful, but it also attacked Tang Ao's soul. Fortunately, Tang Ao had condensed a vast soul sea. Otherwise, Tang Ao felt that his soul would be torn apart under that impact. Looking at the whirlpool at the bottom of the sea, Tang Ao was in a dilemma. It was necessary to collect cultivation resources here, but if he kept collecting like this, it would consume too much of his energy. Moreover, he had to adjust his breathing for a long time every time he collected. While he was adjusting his breathing, he didn't know how many underworld stones he would miss. If he wanted to use the powerful attack power of these underworld stones, Tang Ao had an idea and threw the Shunnong cauldron above the whirlpool. At the same time, Tang Ao sat in the void beside the Shunnong cauldron and constantly formed hand seals with both hands. After Tang Ao's incomparably complex hand seals were used, the Shunnong cauldron flashed with light, and an invisible domain spread out. When the lightning-fast nether stones entered the Shunnong cauldron's domain, they immediately slowed down as if they had fallen into a muddy swamp. Finally, with a ding, they fell into the Shunnong cauldron. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao's heart was filled with joy. Sure enough, his idea was feasible. With a thought from Tang Ao, the Shunnong cauldron flashed with light again, and its size increased significantly. At the same time, dozens of streams of light flew out of the vortex, but they all fell into the Shunnong cauldron. After seeing that the Shunnong cauldron could collect the netherstone, Tang Ao did not continue to observe. Instead, he returned to the square and continued to cultivate the High One Soul refining technique. Right now, Tang Ao's soul power was able to survey his surroundings, but Tang Ao's soul power was far from being able to be used in battle. Moreover, other than using soul power to survey his surroundings, Tang Ao did not know what other uses soul power had. However, according to the records of the High One Soul refining technique, soul power had many other magical uses. Moreover, after using the High One Soul refining technique to temper one's soul power, one would be able to truly control one's soul power. Chapter 791. While Tang Ao was cultivating and scrupulously in the trench, 3 major events happened in the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm. The first was that Tang Ao of 7 Kills sect had 3 great treasures on him: the 9th grade divine weapon, Primordial Sacred Heaven's Bow, the 8th grade divine weapon, Tai Ching Mysterious Mirror, and the treasure that surpassed 9th grade divine weapons, the Farmer God Cauldron. Initially, everyone treated this as a joke. Although he was from one of the 8 major sects, 7 Kills sect, what capabilities did Tang Ao have to be able to obtain 3 treasures? If Tang Ao had obtained one by coincidence, it would still make sense. But if all 3 treasures were on Tang Ao, even the dumbest person would not believe such a thing, right? But after Murong Shao of the Murong family and many other martial artists confirmed it, the crowd started to waver. And when a martial artist took out the recording of Tang Ao's battle with Murong Shao, no one doubted the authenticity of this matter. At this moment, almost 2/3 of the martial artists in the Underworld Emperor mystic realm were searching for Tang Ao. Although Tang Ao had defeated the life and death stage level 2 Murong Shao, everyone could tell from the recording that Tang Ao had defeated Murong Shao completely with the power of the divine weapon. And more than one person confirmed that Tang Ao only had the cultivation of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. An ant from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing actually had 3 supreme divine weapons. This was an opportunity that no one could miss. The flames of greed burned the rationality of many. But no matter how they searched for Tang Ao, they could not find Tang Ao's whereabouts. It was said that the last person who saw Tang Ao was a martial artist called Qianhu. Qianhu wanted to use Tang Ao's whereabouts to exchange with Bai Zhanyuan, but Bai Zhanyuan wanted to take both the goods and the treasures, and Qianhu escaped with severe injuries. After Qianhu escaped, no one knew where Tang Ao was. Although some people did not give up on searching for Tang Ao, more people began to focus on 2 other matters. One was that the natural array of the Underworld Emperor mountain range was broken, and many void tunnels appeared in the mountain range. The martial artists who could not escape in time were all sucked into the void tunnels, and no one knew where they went. Tang Yu, Tang Huer, Luo Tsai, and the rest were also sucked into the void tunnels. It was just that Tang Ao did not know about this. And the third matter was that Opportunity's sacred ground appeared in the depths of the underworld ocean. It was rumored that a martial artist had awakened 15 life souls consecutively in this place. It was just that the location of this holy land of fortuitous opportunities was extremely well hidden. Many people had searched here for more than 2 months but had not found anything. Many people had searched here for more than 2 months, but this opportunity's sacred ground was very well. After cultivating in the plaza at the bottom of the trench for more than 3 months, Tang Ao had become more and more proficient in using his soul power. In this period of time, the Shenong Emperor Cauldron was full 3 times. On average, the Shenong Cauldron of this size could be filled with underworld stones in less than a month. And Tang Ao had accumulated quite a lot of underworld stones. Currently, Tang Ao had 200 supreme-grade underworld stones, and more than 100,000 high-grade underworld stones. As for the middle-grade and low-grade underworld stones, they were piled up like a small mountain. Tang Ao did not care how many there were. Apart from the increase in wealth, Tang Ao's cultivation had also improved. Although Tang Ao had not entered the second level of life and death realm, he was already at the peak of the first level. Chapter 792. Tang Ao was still thinking that if he didn't encounter Huang He this time, he would raise his cultivation base to life and death realm second stage, or even third stage, and then come back to teach him a lesson. If he encountered Huang He, even if Huang He was unlucky, as long as the opportunity was right, he would kill him without hesitation. However, with Tang Ao's current strength, even if he could kill Huang He he would have to pay a huge price. Therefore, Tang Ao had to consider his actions carefully. Otherwise, if he were to get seriously injured while fighting with Huang He would be at the mercy of others. The Dark Ocean's coastal area was vast and empty all the way to the deep ocean. However, after entering the deep ocean, one would be able to see some scattered islands in the middle of the ocean. At this moment, on an unremarkable island, Huang He was standing together with an exquisite-looking woman. If Tang Ao were here, he would naturally be able to recognize this beautiful woman at a glance. She was Qin Yueshuang, who had been engaged to him in the past. However, after cultivating for such a long time, Qin Yueshuang's cultivation base was also very powerful. Huang He's true cultivation base was Life and Death Realm 4th stage, and after activating the Forbidden Art, he could reach Life and Death Realm 6th stage. If not for Tang Ao interrupting his Forbidden Art in advance, he might have been able to kill Tang Ao with one strike if he were to use his Life and Death Realm 6th stage strength. Although Huang He was strong, he was still on his guard when facing this beautiful woman in front of him. He also had a lot of good things on him. With Qin Yueshuang's Life and Death Realm 5th stage cultivation base, he had no qualms about cooperating with Qin Yueshuang. If he had any other choice, Huang He would never want to cooperate with Qin Yueshuang. Huang He had even considered killing Qin Yueshuang more than once, then using Qin Yueshuang's immemorial umbrella to explore the oceanic trench that he and Tang Ao had discovered. You're saying that you discovered a sea trench under the Dark Sea? There are mountains of high-grade and peak-grade understone in the sea trench? Qin Yueshuang looked at Huang He as though she was looking at an idiot. When Huang He saw Qin Yueshuang's eyes, he naturally knew what Qin Yueshuang was thinking. But now that he was here to cooperate with Qin Yueshuang, he naturally couldn't fall out with Qin Yueshuang. That's right, but I didn't discover this place. My soul power isn't that strong. The reason I was able to discover this place is because of a kid named Tang Ao. Huang He's expression turned bitter when he mentioned Tang Ao. Tang Ao was just a nobody. Although it was Tang Ao who had discovered that place, Huang He felt that Qin Yueshuang wouldn't believe him. But to Huang He's surprise, Qin Yueshuang asked coldly, "What does this Tang Ao look like?" Huang He didn't notice the change in Qin Yueshuang's expression at all. He just casually outlined Tang Ao's appearance. At the same time, Huang He was still thinking about how to persuade Qin Yueshuang to go to the trench with him. Without Qin Yueshuang's immemorial umbrella, he could only stare at the netherstones in the trench, no matter how much he coveted them. "Where is Tang Ao?" Qin Yueshuang's voice was equally cold. Ever since she started cultivating, she had been thinking about how to get rid of Tang Ao. In Bluestone City, Tang Ao had humiliated her and killed many of the Qin family's descendants. Although it was Qin Yueshuang who had wronged Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang didn't have the slightest awareness of it. Right now, Qin Yueshuang's strength had reached the 5th level of Life and Death Realm. At the same time, she had a treasure like the immemorial umbrella. Therefore, Qin Yueshuang couldn't wait to kill Tang Ao and use Tang Ao's blood to wash away the humiliation she had suffered. Chapter 793. Even though all the warriors in the underworld Emperor Mystic Realm were frantically searching for Tang Ao's whereabouts, no one knew where Tang Ao was even after 3 months. Not only could they not find Tang Ao, but even the last person with Tang Ao could not be found. After many inquiries, the last place Tang Ao had disappeared was the depths of the Netherworld Sea. An alchemist called Ruosu and Huang He, a 4th stage Life and Death Realm expert, were traveling with Tang Ao. After failing to find Tang Ao, Huang He immediately became the target of suspicion. Now, many people were already thinking that Huang He must have known that Tang Ao was carrying a great treasure and lured Tang Ao to the depths of the Netherworld Sea to kill him. So now, not only could they not find Tang Ao, but they could not even find Ruosu and Huang He. Because Enruosu was too weak, she was ignored by everyone. Now, more and more people suspected that Huang He had killed her after stealing the treasure. That was why they could not find Tang Ao. Huang He, who was far away in the depths of his life soul, did not know this at all. At this moment, Huang He was still negotiating with Qin Yueshuang. Although Huang He was cunning, Qin Yueshuang was not simple either. If you want me to help you, I can. Give me your protective secret technique, the Golden Light Spell. Qin Yueshuang looked at Huang He calmly. The Golden Light Spell was a secret technique that Huang He used to protect himself from the corrosion of the Netherworld Sea. This was Huang He's greatest advantage in the Netherworld Sea. This Golden Light Spell was also obtained by Huang He in the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm. Moreover, Huang He knew that this secret technique was quite extraordinary. After thinking for a while, Huang He said, I can give you the entire Golden Light Spell. Once you cultivate this part, you will be able to travel freely in the Netherworld Sea. I want the entire thing. Otherwise, there is no need to discuss it. Qin Yueshuang said with certainty. A cold light flashed across Huang He's eyes. As expected of the woman that Xiahou Linyuan has taken a liking to. She is truly a thorny opponent. After saying that, Huang He tossed a gold-colored jade slip to Qin Yueshuang. Qin Yueshuang took the jade slip and scanned it with her soul power. After confirming that there were no mistakes, Qin Yueshuang smiled gently and said, Senior Marshal Brother Huang He, please wait here for a day. One day later, I will definitely go to that oceanic trench with you. Qin Yueshuang walked back to her cave dwelling and began cultivating the Golden Light incantation. Huang He was the weakest among the group of people who had first arrived at the Netherworld Sea. However, Huang He relied on this secret skill to thrive in the Netherworld Sea. Therefore, Qin Yueshuang had coveted this secret skill for a long time. Qin Yueshuang would not be Qin Yueshuang if she could not get this secret skill, since Huang He was asking her for help this time. On the plaza at the bottom of the oceanic trench, Tang Ao's forehead was covered in sweat. Tang Ao had already refined the second layer of the Shennon Cauldron's restriction. Tang Ao was now trying to break through the third layer of the Shennon Cauldron's restriction. It only took Tang Ao a week to refine the Shennon Cauldron's second layer of restriction. However, it took Tang Ao 3 months to refine the Shennon Cauldron's third layer of restriction. According to Tang Ao's understanding of the Shennon Cauldron, he would need at most half a day to refine the Shennon Cauldron's third layer of restriction. There was no doubt about the Shennon Cauldron's defensive power. As Tang Ao refined more of the Shennon Cauldron's restrictions, the Shennon Cauldron's power would increase. Previously, when Tang Ao and Huang He fought, Huang He was only at the life and death realm without using any secret skills. Chapter 794. Tang Ao decided that after refining the third layer of the Shennon Cauldron, he would set off to find Enruosu. Furthermore, after refining the third layer of the Shennon Cauldron, Tang Ao was no longer afraid of the turbulence at the entrance of the trench. As time passed, the feeling of refining the third layer of the Shennon Cauldron grew stronger. Therefore, Tang Ao felt a trace of joy in his heart. However, he also felt a little uneasy. Tang Ao rarely felt this way, but Tang Ao knew that every time he felt this way, something would happen. However, Tang Ao had been in the trench for 3 months, and Tang Ao didn't know what would happen. On the surface of the Nethersea, a man and a woman were rushing in Tang Ao's direction. The man and woman were naturally Huang He and Qin Yueshuang. Although Qin Yueshuang had asked Huang He to wait for a day, Qin Yueshuang had already mastered the Golden Light incantation in less than half a day. After learning the Golden Light incantation, Qin Yueshuang had more confidence in the Nethersea. Qin Yueshuang knew how strong the water of the Nethersea was. Back when they were fighting for the Tri-Saint ruins, Qin Yueshuang had personally witnessed the chief disciple of the demon god sect, Yao Jun, being corroded by the Nethersea. At that time, Yao Jun was even stronger than Qin Yueshuang. However, in the end, he still died in the Nethersea. Huang He, who had mastered the Golden Light incantation, was an existence that no one in the Nethersea dared to provoke. If he hadn't asked Qin Yueshuang for help, Qin Yueshuang wouldn't have been able to obtain the Golden Light incantation from him. Qin Yueshuang, who was in the midst of advancing, suddenly came to a halt as she glanced at the two people beside her. "What's up with the Tang Ao that you were talking about?" These two martial artists had not given up on searching for Tang Ao's whereabouts even after such a long time. They did not know Qin Yueshuang, but when they saw a beautiful woman like Qin Yueshuang asking them questions, they both stopped. One of them cupped his fists and said, "This Tang Ao is a disciple of the Seven Kills sect. It's said that this person is ferocious and kills people from the same sect." In the end, he took the clear sky mysterious mirror, the primordial sacred sky bow, and the Shenong cauldron. Another warrior immediately took over the topic and said, "That's right, such scum should be punished by everyone. The reason why we gave up half a year of cultivation was to find this scumbag and get rid of this tumor for the black-yellow continent." As the two of them were speaking, Qin Yueshuang glanced at Huang He without leaving a trace. Although Qin Yueshuang did not believe that Huang He would join forces with Tang Ao to deal with her, the Xiahou family was an insurmountable mountain in front of Huang He, not to mention anything else. Qin Yueshuang knew that although she had exposed the primordial umbrella, Huang He did not have the guts or the ability to snatch it. At the same time, Qin Yueshuang saw a hint of shock and regret in Huang He's eyes. Qin Yueshuang understood why Huang He was shocked. Obviously, Huang He did not know that Tang Ao had such a precious treasure. Otherwise, he would not have asked Qin Yueshuang to cooperate with him. Under the oceanic trench, circles of invisible waves rippled from all directions as the space trembled with a hum. At this moment, the third layer of the Shenong cauldron was finally refined by Tang Ao. Looking at the spatial turbulence at the entrance of the oceanic trench above, Tang Ao was ready to go out. When the Shenong cauldron had only refined one layer of the restriction, Tang Ao had been injured by the spatial turbulence. Now that he had refined the third layer of the Shenong cauldron, Tang Ao was confident that the spatial turbulence could no longer stop him. Chapter 795. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. With a strange sound, Qin Yueshuang and Huang He had already arrived at the bottom of the trench under the protection of the mixed origin umbrella. The moment Tang Ao saw Qin Yueshuang and Huang He also saw Tang Ao. After seeing Tang Ao, Huang He smiled and said, "It seems that the Shenong cauldron is really in your hands. Hand it over." At the same time, Huang He and Qin Yueshuang surrounded Tang Ao from the front and back. Tang Ao did not attack immediately. Instead, he said to Qin Yueshuang, "What? Do you want the Shenong cauldron too? But I only have one Shenong cauldron. I don't know if I should give it to him or to you." Tang Ao did not expect to use such a simple provocation to make Qin Yueshuang and Huang He fight. Before starting, Tang Ao just wanted to get more information from them. After all, he had been in closed-door training here for a long time and did not know a lot about the outside world. If Huang He had come here alone, Tang Ao would not hesitate to take him down. But with Qin Yueshuang, Tang Ao was not so sure. After all, Tang Ao was only at the first level of the life and death realm, while Huang He was at the fourth level. After using the secret method, his strength would be even more terrifying. At the same time, Tang Ao felt from the spiritual power fluctuations on Qin Yueshuang's body that Qin Yueshuang was now at the fourth level of the life and death realm, just like Huang He. However, the golden umbrella on Qin Yueshuang's headlamp seemed to be a bit powerful. Even with Tang Ao's eyesight, he could not tell what it was. However, Tang Ao sensed an ancient and vast aura similar to that of the Shenong cauldron. It seemed to be a treasure of the same level as the Shennon cauldron. Unexpectedly, at this time, Qin Yueshuang smiled charmingly at Tang Ao. Senior Marshal Brother Tang Ao, so much time has passed, and I have almost forgotten about our previous grievances. Right now, your enemy is not me. This guy in front of you is called Huang He, and he has many powerful secret techniques. One of them can temporarily increase his cultivation to the 7th layer of life and death realm. Qin Yueshuang originally wanted to cooperate with Huang He, but the moment she saw Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang changed her mind. Tang Ao's spirit power was not obvious, which meant that he had just reached the life and death realm. However, Huang He was a powerful warrior at the same realm as her. If the two of them joined hands, Tang Ao would definitely be defeated. But after killing Tang Ao, there would definitely be a battle between her and Huang He. In the face of Huang He, who had strange means, Qin Yueshuang did not have the determination to win. In this case, it was better to cooperate with Tang Ao to kill Huang He first, and then fight with Tang Ao. She knew that Tang Ao had 3 magic weapons, but Tang Ao's realm was too low. Even if he had 3 magic weapons, Qin Yueshuang was not afraid at all. After hearing Qin Yueshuang's words, Tang Ao did not answer. Instead, he looked at Huang He and said, "Brother Huang, it seems that this partner of yours is not very good. Why don't you and I join hands to kill her first, and then solve the problem between us?" After hearing Tang Ao's words, Huang He was happy. Just now, he was worried that Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang would join hands to deal with him. Although he was conceited, he was not arrogant enough to fight with Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang at the same time. If it was a one-on-one fight, Tang Ao's strength was really not enough in front of him. But now, he and Qin Yueshuang were evenly matched, and Tang Ao's team was very powerful. Chapter 796. While Qin Yueshuang was hesitating, she suddenly thought of the rumor she had heard before. "Tang Ao, the woman who came with you is your current girlfriend, right? Do you know what happened to her?" "That's right, she was killed by Huang He." Qin Yueshuang had no idea whether Huang He had really killed Enruosu or not. However, Qin Yueshuang knew that Tang Ao was a person who valued friendship and righteousness. This was Tang Ao's Achilles heel. Sure enough, after hearing Qin Yueshuang's words, Tang Ao's expression changed drastically, and killing intent erupted from his body. When Qin Yueshuang said this, Tang Ao clearly saw the change in Huang He's expression. "Roar!" Tang Ao roared and rushed toward Huang He. Huang He looked at the furious Tang Ao and knew that he had miscalculated. When he had killed Enruosu, only Dong Xianyi had seen it. Others had only guessed that he had killed Enruosu, but there was no evidence. In other words, if he had been the first to say that Qin Yueshuang had killed Enruosu, Tang Ao would probably have attacked Qin Yueshuang without hesitation. However, now that Qin Yueshuang had been the first to say this, he obviously didn't have a chance. Seeing that Tang Ao was coming at him furiously, Huang He admitted frankly, "Yes, I forced your little girlfriend into the Netherworld Sea and turned her into ashes. Since you are so eager to die, let me see how much you have improved in the past 3 months." As Huang He spoke, he also took a step forward. At the same time, he silently recited a spell, and circles of golden light patterns wrapped around his body. This was Huang He's protective secret technique, the golden light spell. Bang! Tang Ao blasted out a punch in anger. Huang He also blasted out a punch without dodging. Although he was fighting with Tang Ao, Huang He was watching Qin Yueshuang with vigilance. 3 months ago, Tang Ao was still an ant that he could kill in seconds. Even after 3 months of cultivation, Huang He still did not think that Tang Ao could threaten him. The real danger to him was Qin Yueshuang, who was eyeing him covetously. In fact, Huang He had overestimated himself and underestimated Tang Ao. 3 months ago, He was able to crush Tang Ao because Tang Ao's cultivation base was only at the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, while he had used a secret technique to raise his cultivation base to the 5th level of the life and death realm. With such a huge gap, Tang Ao was naturally no match for him. However, he was unable to kill Tang Ao despite the gap between them. This was not because Tang Ao was too strong, but because he was too incompetent. Now, Tang Ao had used up the netherstones that had been accumulated in the trench for tens of thousands of years to awaken the 9 Dragons Emperor's jade platform and cast the 9 Dragons Emperor's jade body. His cultivation base had broken through to the life and death realm, and his life spirit had also been raised to the 29th level. Compared to 3 months ago, Tang Ao's current strength was more than 10 times stronger. Bang! At the moment of contact, a golden light flashed on Tang Ao's fist. This slightly stunned Huang He, but he did not care. An ant was still an ant. With this punch, Huang He had already broken Tang Ao's arm, and the next punch would break Tang Ao's head. Qin Yueshuang's strength was not weaker than his, and it was not a good thing to have Tang Ao by her side. Since he could not use him, Tang Ao could only die. However, what shocked Huang He was that after this punch, Tang Ao's body did not move at all. Instead, he was sent flying by the huge force from Tang Ao's fist because he had underestimated his opponent. Huang He stomped heavily on the ground, stopping his body from flying backward. Qin Yueshuang was also somewhat surprised. Just now, Qin Yueshuang did not have any intention of attacking. She had a grudge against Tang Ao, and she also hoped that Tang Ao would die at Huang He's hands. Chapter 797. It wasn't that Tang Ao didn't use his life soul. At the instant he collided with Huang He, his fist was already covered with the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. However, now that the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul had advanced to the 29th firmament, Tang Ao could use it as he pleased. He didn't need to summon the Battle Saint Bone Life Soul every time he used it to envelop his entire body. After forcing Huang He back with a punch, Tang Ao said coldly, "Huang He, it seems that you haven't made any progress in the past 3 months. Brat, what are you so proud of? I was just careless just now. Just now, you also saw that Qin Yueshuang didn't intend to help. If it weren't for your ability, you would have died in my hands. Why don't we work together and kill her first? Don't worry, this trench is a bit special. Even if Qin Yueshuang dies here, she will not be able to escape. House Xiaohe won't be able to trace it back to us." "All right." Tang Ao agreed almost without any hesitation. However, after Tang Ao agreed, he did not attack Qin Yueshuang. Instead, he attacked Huang He again. This time, Tang Ao didn't hold back. The Battle Sage Bone Life Soul instantly protected him. Golden light flowed around Tang Ao's body, making him look like a deity. As Tang Ao charged forward, the surrounding space emitted a buzzing sound. It was obvious how powerful the 29th firmament life soul was. "You're courting death." Huang He naturally sensed the powerful aura on Tang Ao's body. At the instant the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul possessed him, Huang He felt a threat from Tang Ao. Huang He's most powerful life soul was from the 28th heaven. It was a sinister blood thread. When Huang He summoned the blood thread, he felt a weak suppression from his life soul. Huang He was horrified and retreated at the same time. His blood thread life soul was already a life soul from the 28th firmament, but he felt the suppression of Tang Ao's resplendent golden life soul. This meant that Tang Ao's life soul was a life soul from the 29th firmament. Huang He had previously encountered people from the 8 major sects and 6 major clans of the primordial era. Most of them could summon the 29th heavenly life spirit. However, what he was facing now was not a life spirit phantom, but a real life spirit of the 29th heaven. Buzz! A loud explosion sounded in the space. Tang Ao's figure instantly appeared beside Huang He. Before Huang He could react, Tang Ao suddenly punched out. Gotcha! Gotcha! The golden light spell on Huang He's body shattered under Tang Ao's punch, turning into specks of golden light. At the same time, Huang He was also hit by Tang Ao's punch and hit the wall behind him. Feeling the surging power in his body, Tang Ao murmured to himself, "It seems that I have underestimated myself." Tang Ao did not expect his strength to grow so much this time. He also did not expect that the life soul of the 29th firmament could play such a powerful role at the first level of the life and death realm. If he had known this, Tang Ao might not have talked nonsense with Qin Yueshuang and Huang He. Because the two of them together were still not enough in front of Tang Ao. Die for me! Tang Ao roared again and rushed towards Huang He to kill him. Tang Ao's punch was extremely fast, and the sound of the wind was heard. Huang He felt as if his face was cut by a steel knife. If such a punch landed on his head, he would definitely die. Chapter 798. Before Tang Ao's fist could strike Huang He's head, Huang He's sanguine life soul transformed into a blood net that enveloped Tang Ao. Tang Ao had never seen the blood thread life soul before, so he didn't think much of it. He still threw a punch without dodging, but under Tang Ao's fierce punch, he was unable to dodge. However, the blood net was not destroyed by Tang Ao. Instead, it wrapped around Tang Ao. Tang Ao's figure immediately flashed and he retreated from the battle. Naturally, the blood net missed its target. It transformed into a line of blood and returned to Huang He. Although the blood net did not capture Tang Ao still suffered a loss under the blood net. At that moment, a portion of the battle sage bone life soul had been corroded by Tang Ao's fist. The battle sage bone life soul was already at the 29th firmament. Its strength was no less than most 6th grade or even 7th grade divine armaments. However, under the blood net, the battle sage bone life soul was still corroded. With a thought from Tang Ao, endless soul power surged out from his soul sea. The part of the battle sage bone life soul that had been corroded instantly recovered. Tang Ao was also a little afraid of the bloodlines. It had already been more than 2 years since the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm had opened. During this period of time, he wasn't the only one who had encountered a fortuitous encounter. In fact, those who could survive till now had basically obtained their own opportunities in the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm. Huang He's endless secret techniques and blood thread life soul, as well as Qin Yueshuang's golden umbrella, were clearly the fortuitous encounters they had obtained. Qin Yueshuang, are you still going to watch the show? This brat must have obtained a great opportunity in the trench, which was why he could fight me to this extent at the first layer of life and death realm. Do you think you'll be a match for this kid if I'm killed by him? Huang He and Qin Yueshuang spoke while silently casting their secret technique. Qin Yueshuang didn't hesitate either. The primeval chaos umbrella released thousands of golden blade lights toward Tang Ao. Tang Ao suddenly blasted out a fist shadow. The fist shadow smashed the blade lights one after another, but it was covered by even more blade lights. A blade beam struck Tang Ao's shoulder, leaving a mark on the battle sage bone life soul that covered Tang Ao's shoulder. Amazing! Tang Ao sighed inwardly. This was just a casual strike from Qin Yueshuang, and it could produce such an effect. Qin Yueshuang's golden umbrella was definitely a weapon that could rival the Origin Saint Heavenly Bow. Ah! While Tang Ao was defending against the blade light, Huang He, who was not far away, let out a blood-curdling scream. On Huang He's waist, there was also a blade aura. Huang He's secret skill was also interrupted by Qin Yueshuang. Once Huang He's secret skill was fully used, it could raise his cultivation to the 7th level of the life and death realm. Qin Yueshuang needed Huang He to have the combat power to deal with Tang Ao, but she didn't want to leave a powerful enemy after Tang Ao was killed. Therefore, after Huang He's secret skill raised his cultivation to the 5th level of the life and death realm, it was forcibly interrupted by Qin Yueshuang. Huang He clearly understood Qin Yueshuang's thoughts. After glancing at Qin Yueshuang with resentment, he rushed toward Tang Ao. Tang Ao didn't recognize Qin Yueshuang's primeval chaos umbrella, but Huang He did. Huang He had been in the Nethersea for so long, but he had never seen anyone who could use their life soul to block the blade lights of Qin Yueshuang's primeval chaos umbrella. However, Tan Ai could break the blade lights of Qin Yueshuang's primeval chaos umbrella with just a few punches. This made Huang He more and more convinced that Tang Ao had obtained a big secret in the trench. Chapter 799. Kill! Huang He's spirit power surged out of his body as he charged toward Tang Ao. After using his secret art, Huang He's cultivation had increased to the 5th level of the life and death realm. Although Huang He hated Qin Yueshuang for interrupting his secret art, he did not dare to turn against Qin Yueshuang right now. So, he could only join hands with Qin Yueshuang to fight against Tang Ao. In just 3 months, Tang Ao's power had become extremely horrifying. When Huang He was at the 5th level of the life and death realm, killing Tang Ao was as easy as killing an ant for him. But now, Huang He could feel the threat of death from Tang Ao. Opening his hand, Huang He threw out his blood string life spirit. The blood string immediately turned into thousands of hair-thin blood strings in the air, attacking toward Tang Ao. After feeling the coldness behind him, Tang Ao called back his green lotus sword spirit. Then, Tang Ao's body flashed, retreating from Qin Yueshuang and Huang He's attack range. Facing the two together, Tang Ao was not afraid at all. What Tang Ao was thinking was that if he could kill one of them first, things would be much easier. However, Qin Yueshuang and Huang He were obviously battle-hardened warriors, so they did not give Tang Ao any chance. Qin Yueshuang, you have seen this brat's power. He is only at the 1st level of the life and death realm, but he is already able to fight against you and me. There must be some big secret on him. Let's not hold back anymore and kill him with a thunderous attack. Huang He said to Qin Yueshuang while controlling the thousands of blood strings around him. Qin Yueshuang was also very afraid of Tang Ao's power. Right now, she and Tang Ao were mortal enemies. Therefore, she had to kill Tang Ao with this rare opportunity. However, Qin Yueshuang did not dare to use her full power. Once she used up too much of her power, after Tang Ao died, Qin Yueshuang would die as well. Huang He looked honest on the surface, but he was actually very cunning. Alright, I will use my full power to activate the immemorial umbrella. This will take some time, so please help me restrain him. Although Qin Yueshuang would not use her full power against Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang still agreed to Huang He's plan without any hesitation. Although Qin Yueshuang had interrupted Huang He's secret art, Qin Yueshuang was not sure if Huang He's secret art could be used continuously. When Huang He was at the 5th level of the life and death realm, she was already having a hard time dealing with him. If Huang He reached the 6th level, she and Huang He would not be able to do anything to each other. Once Huang He used his secret art to increase his cultivation to the 7th level of the life and death realm, Qin Yueshuang would be in great danger. Even though the two of them were working together to deal with Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang understood that Huang He's threat to her was even greater than Tang Ao's. While Qin Yueshuang was pondering, Huang He sneered inwardly. When Qin Yueshuang had interrupted his secret art, he had forced out a mouthful of blood from his body. It looked like he had suffered a backlash, but that was not the case. This was because his secret art could be divided into 2 parts. When he used his secret art before, he knew that either Tang Ao or Qin Yueshuang would not let him successfully increase his cultivation to the 7th level of the life and death realm. Once he increased his cultivation to the 7th level of the life and death realm, the two of them would not be his match even if they worked together. Therefore, he had only used his secret art to increase his cultivation to the 5th level of the life and death realm. Coincidentally, Qin Yueshuang had attacked him, and he had also spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 800. A strange sound rang in Tang Ao's ears. With a wave of his hand, Tang Ao blocked an incoming blood thread. The azure lotus sword soul constantly spun around Tang Ao's body. The terrifying power on the azure lotus sword seemed like it would erupt at any moment. After blocking the sneak attack, Tang Ao attacked Huang He. Compared to Qin Yueshuang, Tang Ao hated Huang He even more. He had heard from Qin Yueshuang that Huang He had killed Enruo. Although Huang He had admitted it, Tang Ao still didn't believe it since he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. Or it could be said that Tang Ao still had a sliver of hope in his heart. Fortunately, a miracle had happened. Enruo hadn't died. Upon seeing Tang Ao charge at him, Huang He roared angrily. Blood aura spewed out from his body as thin strands of blood threads constantly appeared around him. They spun at a terrifying speed like a storm. As for Huang He also charged at Tang Ao with the terrifying storm of blood threads. It was as though he wanted to shatter everything. Tang Ao's azure lotus sword soul was unleashed. Sword chi spewed out and sword beams flashed. At that moment, the 7 azure lotus swords formed a circle and slashed at the blood threads around Huang He. Sword chi crisscrossed and the sword intent was extremely sharp. In an instant, the blood threads around Huang He's body were sliced apart by the azure lotus sword. However, the severed blood threads would often flash with a sanguine light before recovering to their original state. Even though the azure lotus sword soul was unparalleled, Huang He's blood threads seemed to be endless. This left Tang Ao somewhat helpless. Compared to Tang Ao's helplessness, Huang He was about to vomit blood. His sanguine life soul was a 28th heaven life soul. Furthermore, this sanguine life soul wasn't a defensive life soul, but a solid offensive life soul. However, when facing Tang Ao's green lotus sword, his blood thread life soul was suppressed by Tang Ao's green lotus sword soul. He had no way of fighting back. If he attacked with all his might, he could naturally make his bloodline life soul stronger, but this would expose some of his trump cards. At this moment, he was not fighting with Tang Ao alone. Qin Yueshuang was beside him. Qin Yueshuang, what are you waiting for? Huang He couldn't help but roar when he saw that Qin Yueshuang had no intention of taking action after his sanguine life soul entangled Tang Ao's green lotus sword soul. Although Tang Ao hadn't attacked him, Tang Ao's green lotus sword soul's attack had been held back by his blood thread life soul. However, the sanguine aura on his sanguine life soul was constantly being depleted. Once the sanguine aura of his sanguine life soul was exhausted, he could forget about the treasures on Tang Ao. How could Qin Yueshuang not see that the sanguine aura on Huang He's sanguine life soul was constantly being depleted? This was what Qin Yueshuang wanted to see. If possible, Qin Yueshuang even wanted to see Tang Ao and Huang He fight to the bitter end before she took action. However, Qin Yueshuang knew that with how cunning the two of them were, they clearly wouldn't give her such a chance. Even so, Qin Yueshuang didn't immediately take action. Huang He was expending his strength, and so was Tang Ao. Even so, Qin Yueshuang didn't take action immediately. Huang He was expending his strength, and so was Tang Ao. The reason why Tang Ao didn't attack with all his might was that he was afraid of Qin Yueshuang's primordial chaos umbrella. After seeing that Qin Yueshuang hadn't taken action, Tang Ao was even more afraid. Chapter 801. A 29th level life spirit was a sign of strength. But with such strength, the soul power and spiritual power consumed were also terrifying. Tang Ao didn't care about soul power because Tang Ao had a soul sea inside him. No matter how much soul power he needed, the soul sea could provide it. But spiritual power was different. Even though Tang Ao's spiritual power was extremely condensed, Tang Ao's spiritual power was only equivalent to a third-stage life and death realm warrior. Now that Tang Ao used two 29th level life spirits, it consumed a lot of Tang Ao's spiritual power. Although he hadn't used the Battle Sage Bone Life Spirit, Tang Ao didn't dare to put it away. Qin Yueshuang's mixed origin umbrella's golden blade light was extremely powerful. Tang Ao was worried that if he wasn't careful, he would be attacked by Qin Yueshuang. Senior brother Huang He, hold on for another 30 breaths of time and my primeval umbrella will be fully activated. At that time, I will be able to kill Tang Ao in a single strike. After killing Tang Ao, we will split his treasures equally. Qin Yueshuang's hands were constantly striking out with strange hand seals. The primeval umbrella was also trembling in front of her. But Qin Yueshuang didn't have any intention of making a move. It was as if she really needed another 30 seconds to fully activate the mixed origin umbrella. Damn, Qin Yueshuang, take care. I'm leaving. Huang He cursed. Blood qi surged from his body, as if he was going to leave immediately. Although Huang He's body was gushing with blood energy, as if he was about to use the blood escape technique to escape, Huang He had no intention of running away. Tang Ao had the primordial sacred sky bow, farmer god cauldron, and rumored to have the Tai Ching mysterious mirror. These 3 items were treasures that could make countless people go crazy. Moreover, Qin Yueshuang had the mixed origin umbrella. If he escaped now, these 4 items would have nothing to do with him. But if Qin Yueshuang didn't make a move, he could only escape. Because if Qin Yueshuang didn't make a move, he wouldn't get anything even if he stayed here. Not only that, but his life was also in danger. Buzz! A holy aura spread out in the air, and the entire trench was enveloped by the golden light released by the primordial umbrella. In an instant, the dark trench became resplendent. The entire space seemed to be covered in a layer of gold. Under the illumination of this golden light, Tang Ao felt his body stiffen. Moreover, this holy and vast aura seemed to be suppressing him to his knees. The primordial chaos umbrella and the Shenong cauldron were both treasures that surpassed 9th-grade divine weapons. Tang Ao had refined 3 layers of restrictions on the Shenong cauldron, and Qin Yueshuang had also refined 3 layers of restrictions on the primordial umbrella. In order to make it easier to use, Qin Yueshuang had even used her blood essence to refine the immemorial umbrella. This vast golden light not only enveloped Tang Ao, but it also enveloped Huang He. However, Tang Ao was in the middle of the golden light, while Huang He was only at the edge. Qin Yueshuang, you're crazy. Huang He cursed when he saw that Qin Yueshuang had also enveloped him. The demon-subduing golden light of the primordial chaos umbrella has always been like this. If you keep talking, get lost. Although Qin Yueshuang had deliberately consumed Huang He's spiritual power while dealing with Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang naturally wouldn't admit it. Chapter 802. The spiritual power on Tang Ao's body kept vibrating. Under this vast spiritual power, Tang Ao's robe also fluttered. Qin Yueshuang and Huang He's eyes also focused. Qin Yueshuang and Huang He were both afraid of each other, so they had held back in their attacks. Only when they knew that Tang Ao had unleashed the 29th Heaven Life Spirit did their expressions turn serious. The 29th Heaven Life Spirit is indeed powerful. It seems that the benefits you have obtained here are also very shocking. As Huang He spoke, he moved his body and then once again surrounded Tang Ao. After shattering Qin Yueshuang's attack, Tang Ao did not continue to be passive, but took the initiative to attack. The green lotus sword soul blasted toward Huang He with an indomitable momentum. In an instant, thousands of sword qi crisscrossed and sword light flashed. Huang He was immediately surrounded by thousands of sharp and powerful sword qi. Huang He did not dare to be careless, and blood lines sprayed out without hesitation, tightly wrapping the space he was in. Pooh! 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 A series of muffled sounds came out, like a sharp sword piercing through a rag. However, although Tang Ao's green lotus sword soul could cut the bloodlines, it could not penetrate them. Tang Ao's figure flashed and appeared in front of Huang He. At the moment when the green lotus sword soul cut the bloodlines, Tang Ao also punched out. Seeing Tang Ao's punch, Huang He sneered. In an instant, the bloodlines that had been resisting the green lotus sword soul suddenly shook, then rolled back and wrapped the green lotus sword soul. At the same time, countless bloodlines also entangled Tang Ao, as if they wanted to strangle Tang Ao. Even so, Tang Ao did not dodge and punched out. "You lunatic!" Seeing Tang Ao's method of exchanging injury for injury, Huang He cursed in his heart and had to recall the bloodlines to block in front of him. However, in his haste, how could Huang He possibly receive the full-powered strike that Tang Ao had been accumulating for a long time? Boom! Tang Ao's fist pierced through the layers of blood threads and landed on Huang He's body. Gotcha! Huang He's chest immediately caved in. Several of his bones were broken by Tang Ao's attack. Pfft! As Huang He retreated, he spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Clearly, being struck by the 29th heaven life spirit was not easy for him, no matter how strong he was. At this moment, Qin Yueshuang also made her move. An incomparably sharp golden blade light flashed in the air, and when it reappeared, it pierced Tang Ao's back. Even a life soul as strong as the battle sage bone life soul of the 29th firmament was instantly shattered by the golden blade beam. However, the moment the blade beam pierced Tang Ao's back, Tang Ao disappeared from where he was. When Tang Ao's figure reappeared, blood kept flowing out of Tang Ao's left shoulder. Under the crazy healing of the jade bone life soul, the wound showed no signs of healing and blood seeped out bit by bit. Tang Ao roared and was about to pull out a golden bronze nail from his left shoulder. However, to Tang Ao's surprise, he could not pull out the bronze nail from his body. Tang Ao knew that the reason why the jade bone life soul was unable to heal his injuries was because of this copper nail. This bronze nail had sealed his vitality. No matter how hard the jade bone life soul tried, it could not break through this layer of seal. When Tang Ao and Huang He were fighting just now, he suddenly felt a cold fluctuation behind him. Without hesitation, Tang Ao dodged it. Chapter 803. Upon seeing that Tang Ao hadn't been killed by her bronze nails, Qin Yueshuang was slightly disappointed. She had grasped the timing very well. When Tang Ao attacked Huang He and Tang Ao was restrained by Huang He's bloodlines, Qin Yueshuang hadn't made a move. Only when Tang Ao was about to kill Huang He did Qin Yueshuang release the bronze nails. Qin Yueshuang believed that Tang Ao would definitely not take her attack seriously since he had the battle sage bone life soul at the 29th firmament. However, Qin Yueshuang didn't expect Tang Ao to be so decisive. The moment he sensed her attack, he gave up his pursuit of Huang He. In that situation, Tang Ao could have blasted Huang He's head apart with just one more strike. "Qin Yueshuang, I'll remember your life-saving grace." Huang He retreated to the side and took out an elixir from his storage ring before swallowing it. Huang He's chaotic aura quickly calmed down. The wounds on his body also healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Huang He felt helpless that Qin Yueshuang hadn't managed to kill Tang Ao with her attack. He had deliberately left an opening for Tang Ao, and Tang Ao had indeed seized the opportunity to injure him with a punch. Although he seemed to be in danger just now, in reality, he could escape with his blood escape. If Qin Yueshuang had been able to kill Tang Ao, he could have used blood escape to wrap up Tang Ao and escape. Unfortunately, Tang Ao had been too decisive. He hadn't fallen for the attack even under such circumstances. This made Huang He very depressed. Although Tang Ao hadn't been killed, Tang Ao had been injured by Qin Yueshuang. This was a good thing for Huang He. Even though Tang Ao's cultivation base was not high, he had some tricks up his sleeve. Huang He was also worried that if he had the chance to kill Qin Yueshuang, he would not be able to defeat Tang Ao. Therefore, it was good to exhaust Tang Ao now. While Huang He was healing, Tang Ao was still trying to pull out the copper nails on his body. However, this copper nail was too powerful. No matter how hard Tang Ao tried, he was unable to force this copper nail out. At this time, the two copper nails next to Qin Yueshuang slowly emerged, and an aura locked onto Tang Ao. Xiao! Two copper nails flashed in the air, furiously shooting towards Tang Ao. This time, Tang Ao did not dare to be careless. The moment the copper nail appeared, he took out the Shenong cauldron. Clang! Although the two copper nails hit the Shenong cauldron at the same time, the Shenong cauldron produced a heavy bell sound. After refining the third layer of the Shenong cauldron's restrictions, the Shenong cauldron's defense rose to a terrifying level. The two copper nails that could penetrate the 29th First Firmament Battle Sage Life Soul were easily blocked by the Shenong cauldron. After the two copper nails were blocked, Huang He's blood threads began to entangle Tang Ao from all directions, as if he had already expected this to happen. Qin Yueshuang waved the primordial chaos umbrella and released thousands of golden blade beams at Tang Ao. Hum! The Shenong cauldron suddenly trembled before floating above Tang Ao's head steadily like a boulder. Huang He and Qin Yueshuang's attacks landed on the light screen emitted by the Shenong cauldron, but they only stirred up ripples on the light screen. They were unable to attack Tang Ao. As for Qin Yueshuang and Huang He, they were unable to attack Tang Ao, but Tang Ao would not go easy on them. Chapter 804. Roar! Tang Ao shot an arrow. The mysterious sky arrow was like a raging black dragon as it charged towards Qin Yueshuang. The entire space trembled as an incomparably powerful surge of spiritual energy tore through the space, crushing towards Qin Yueshuang. Lines of blood converged to form a blood web and appeared on Qin Yueshuang's body. Pft! The lines of blood shattered inch by inch and dissipated. Then, the mysterious sky arrow hit the mixed elements umbrella without losing any momentum. After the mysterious sky arrow hit the mixed elements umbrella, it immediately dissipated. Meanwhile, Qin Yueshuang was also blown away by this terrifying distance, and crashed into a mountain wall behind her. Even with the protection of the mixed elements umbrella, Qin Yueshuang's snow-white dress was still slightly torn. Blood seeped out of her body and dyed her snow-white dress red. The primordial sacred sky bow is indeed powerful. Qin Yueshuang stared at the primordial sacred sky bow in Tang Ao's hands. Her beautiful eyes flashed with determination. Although her primordial chaos umbrella had both offensive and defensive capabilities, it was actually a supportive treasure. Therefore, the mixed elements umbrella wasn't particularly outstanding in terms of offensive, defensive, or even supportive effects. In terms of offensive power, the mixed elements umbrella was much weaker than the primordial sacred sky bow. In terms of defensive power, the mixed elements umbrella was also inferior to Tang Ao's Shenong cauldron. Moreover, it was rumored that the Shenong cauldron was mainly used for alchemy. This made Qin Yueshuang speechless. In terms of supportive effects, the mixed elements umbrella couldn't compare to the mysterious clear mirror. However, these three items seemed to be on Tang Ao at the moment. It was just that Tang Ao was only using the primordial sacred sky bow and the Shenong cauldron. Therefore, Qin Yueshuang wasn't sure if the mysterious clear mirror was on Tang Ao. Although others said that Tang Ao was ruthless, Qin Yueshuang had interacted with Tang Ao for a period of time. Therefore, Qin Yueshuang knew that Tang Ao was a pure and kind person compared to her. Because of this, Qin Yueshuang felt that the rumor that Tang Ao killed her junior sister and took her treasure was not credible at all. But now that she was standing on the opposite side of Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang could only believe it. That was because the Tai Ching mysterious mirror was also an extremely terrifying item. Qin Yueshuang, if you continue to hold back, the 3 treasures on him won't have much to do with you and me. During the battle between Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang, Huang He's injuries had completely healed. As Huang He spoke, Tang Ao drew the primordial sacred sky bow again. However, the target of the primordial sacred sky bow this time was not Qin Yueshuang, but Huang He. Tang Ao did not use his full strength when he shot that arrow just now. It was just to test the power of the primordial chaos umbrella. Now, Tang Ao understood that the primordial chaos umbrella looked extremely powerful, but in reality, it was only good to see but useless. Whether it was in terms of attack, defense, or other aspects, the primordial chaos umbrella was not outstanding. Such a treasure was of little value to Tang Ao. Although it was very comprehensive, it was completely useless. However, this was only the case for Tang Ao, as Tang Ao already had 3 powerful divine armaments. For countless people without divine armaments, the primordial chaos umbrella was also a treasure that they scrambled for. In reality, the primordial chaos umbrella was not as weak as Tang Ao had imagined. It was just that Qin Yueshuang had used her essence blood to refine the primordial chaos umbrella, causing the sacred primordial chaos umbrella to be contaminated with bad luck. In this way, Qin Yueshuang could use the primordial chaos umbrella with ease. However, she could only use about 60% of the primordial chaos umbrella's full power. Naturally, it was not a match for the primordial sacred sky bow. Chapter 805. The spiritual power on Tang Ao's body vibrated, and the primeval sacred sky bow in Tang Ao's hand released a terrifying aura that seemed to destroy everything. When Tang Ao's primeval sacred sky bow locked onto Huang He, Qin Yueshuang didn't act rashly. Instead, she took the time to heal her injuries. Tang Ao was too strong, and this caused Qin Yueshuang to feel very defeated. But she had no choice but to admit that the person whom she had toyed with in the palm of her hand was much stronger than her. Qin Yueshuang had watched Tang Ao grow step by step. Judging from Tang Ao's growth speed, Tang Ao's current battle strength, and Tang Ao's talent, none of the genius disciples that Qin Yueshuang knew could be compared with Tang Ao. All the genius disciples that Qin Yueshuang knew could not be compared to Tang Ao. She was afraid that only her fiancé, Xiahou Linyuan, could be compared to Tang Ao. But what kind of person was Xiahou Linyuan, and what kind of identity did Tang Ao have? Tang Ao and Xiahou Linyuan should have had no interaction at all, but they had achieved the same amazing achievements. Ah! Just as Qin Yueshuang was in a daze, Huang He suddenly let out a miserable cry. His entire body was covered in blood as he slammed against a sturdy rock in a wretched manner. The huge rock was smashed into pieces by Huang He. The pain from the distance nearly caused Huang He to faint. However, Huang He didn't dare to lose his wits. Instead, he looked at Tang Ao. Pfft! Tang Ao spat out a mouthful of blood. Just now, Huang He had indeed blocked his Xiantian arrow with a talisman. However, after the arrow was shot, Tang Ao immediately rushed forward and used the Shenong cauldron to seriously injure Huang He. Huang He was caught off guard and made up his mind. 3 blood threads as thin as hair passed through Tang Ao's body under Huang He's control. Moreover, the injury caused by Huang He's blood thread life soul was extremely slow when Tang Ao used his jade bone life soul to recover. Huang He and Qin Yueshuang looked at Tang Ao in shock. Although Tang Ao had been using his divine armament to put them at a disadvantage in the current battle, Huang He and Qin Yueshuang knew that if it weren't for their means and Qin Yueshuang's divine armament, Qin Yueshuang and Huang He would have been dead. However, Huang He and Qin Yueshuang knew that if it wasn't for the fact that they had some tricks up their sleeves and that Qin Yueshuang had a weapon of the same grade as the Shenong cauldron, they would have been dead by now. Even until now, Huang He was still holding back his trump cards. However, Huang He did not know if Qin Yueshuang and Tang Ao were also holding back their trump cards. His trump card could kill any one of them. Even if Tang Ao had the Shenong cauldron, he would be killed by the Shenong cauldron's recoil. However, Huang He didn't dare do so, nor was he willing to do so. At that moment, he was already severely injured. After killing Qin Yueshuang or Tang Ao, he might not be a match for either of them. From the looks of it, if he wanted to expose his trump card, Huang He would choose to kill Tang Ao. It was just that after killing Tang Ao, Huang He wasn't confident that he could deal with Qin Yueshuang. In fact, under Qin Yueshuang's primeval origin umbrella, Huang He wasn't sure if he could use his blood escape technique to escape. Qin Yueshuang had the same thoughts as Huang He. The commotion caused by the trio's battle wasn't small. Once someone noticed it, they would definitely discover the trench. In fact, Qin Yueshuang's guess was right. Because the three of them had caused too much of a commotion in their battle, when a martial artist passed by this sea region, they would be able to catch up to him. Following that, the warrior discovered the trench that constantly spewed out nether stones. After the warrior discovered it, several other warriors discovered it one after another. Chapter 806. Tang Ao, wait. I have something to say. Huang He cursed in his heart when he saw Tang Ao recklessly rushing towards him. He had never expected that an Ruosu, whom he had killed in a fit of rage, would bring him so much trouble. If he had known that this would happen, he would never have admitted to killing an Ruosu. However, Huang He had felt that Tang Ao would definitely die if he and Qin Yueshuang joined forces. That was why he had admitted to it without any scruples. Now, however, not only had Tang Ao not died, but he had also injured both him and Qin Yueshuang. If this continued, it was very likely that the three of them would end up dying here. Either that, or they would each use their own means to leave this place. However, this was definitely not what Huang He wanted to see first. Since he had come here, he was not going to go back empty-handed. Tang Ao did not immediately make a move. Tang Ao knew that if he fought desperately, Huang He would definitely die. However, judging from Huang He's performance just now, even if he fought desperately, he would most likely be seriously injured. Although Tang Ao was strong, Tang Ao did not think that he would still be a match for Qin Yueshuang. Qin Yueshuang's cultivation might not be as strong as Huang He's, but Qin Yueshuang's means were not inferior to Huang He's. Since the beginning of the battle, Tang Ao had been killed by Qin Yueshuang and Huang He twice. Of course, Qin Yueshuang's copper nails had injured Tang Ao. In his current state, Tang Ao was still confident that he could block Qin Yueshuang's copper nails. Once he was seriously injured, even the Shenong cauldron would not be able to block Qin Yueshuang's strange copper nails and the mixed origin umbrella. Moreover, the mixed origin umbrella could also lock onto his aura. After being seriously injured, he would not be able to escape even if he wanted to. Do you have any last words? Even though he didn't plan to attack immediately, Tang Ao's tone was still extremely cold, as if he would immediately attack Huang He at the slightest disagreement. Huang He sighed in his heart. He then looked at Tang Ao and said, Qin Yueshuang has two supreme treasures on her, the primordial umbrella and the soul-chasing nail. She also has many other treasures. Let's join hands and kill Qin Yueshuang. I only want the primordial umbrella. Everything else is yours. After that, we will go our separate ways. How about it? Huang He, your plan is quite good. Now that you are also heavily injured, even if senior brother Tang Ao wants to join forces, it will be with me. I have treasures on me and you also have many good things on you. After killing you, Your treasures will definitely satisfy me and senior brother Tang Ao. Or we can go all out right now and kill Tang Ao. As for the treasures on him, we'll have to rely on our own abilities." After saying that, Qin Yueshuang looked at them cautiously. At present, the three people in the trench had suffered different degrees of injuries. But in general, Huang He's injuries were the most serious. If he hadn't decisively injured Tang Ao and made Tang Ao continue to attack him without any scruples, Huang He would have been a dead man at this moment. After Huang He was Tang Ao. Tang Ao was injured by her soul-chasing nail, and Tang Ao still couldn't take it out until now. The one with the least injuries was Qin Yueshuang. After a short period of rest, Qin Yueshuang's injuries were no longer a problem for her. However, after Qin Yueshuang finished speaking, the three of them didn't move and just looked at the other two with vigilance. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao said, "I want to kill both of you, but I can cooperate with any one of you now. I will use the primordial sacred heavenly bow to attack with all my strength. No matter who cooperates with me, they will have to directly restrain the other party." Chapter 807. Qin Yueshuang, you're crazy. Huang He cursed, but his hands didn't slow down at all. An azure bead was thrown out by Huang He. This azure bead was extremely powerful. As it spun in the air, it released tens of thousands of five-colored rays of light. The soul-chasing bronze nails were all knocked off when they hit the bead. The space locked by the primordial chaos umbrella was also broken by the bead. "Huang He, the sea-calming pearl is indeed with you." As Qin Yueshuang spoke, the primordial chaos umbrella released thousands of golden beams that suppressed the sea-calming pearl. At that moment, there was a piercing sound as a dazzling white light tore through the space and hit the sea-calming pearl. The sea-calming pearl shook twice under the impact of the mystic heaven arrow before turning into a blue light that retreated into Huang He's body. Tang Ao's second mystic heaven arrow happened to arrive in front of Huang He at that moment. This time, Huang He couldn't dodge it and was penetrated by the mystic heaven arrow. However, Huang He's body also exploded into a bloody mist at that moment. "Stop him." Upon seeing the bloody mist, Qin Yueshuang knew that Huang He hadn't been killed by Tang Ao. Instead, he had used blood escape to escape. However, not only did Tang Ao not stop Huang He from escaping, but he also immediately protected himself with the Shenong Cauldron. The moment the Shenong Cauldron protected Tang Ao, the three soul-chasing bronze nails that had landed on the ground immediately appeared in front of Tang Ao. With three clangs, the soul-chasing bronze nails hit the Shenong Cauldron. However, the force from the nails was almost twice as strong as before. Tang Ao spat out a mouthful of blood under the immense backlash. At the same time, the bronze nails that were nailed into Tang Ao's body continued to penetrate a few inches into Tang Ao's heart before being restrained by the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul. Even so, Tang Ao's aura was still chaotic. Clearly, he was severely injured. Qin Yueshuang and Tang Ao had joined hands to force Huang He to leave. Now that Huang He had left and she had severely injured Tang Ao, Qin Yueshuang was very satisfied. Because in this state, no matter how strong Tang Ao was, no matter how powerful Tang Ao's divine weapon was, he would definitely not be a match for Qin Yueshuang. "Tang Ao, you innocently killed a disciple of my Qin clan. Today is the day you repay your debt." "He, Qin Yueshuang, you shameless bitch, how dare you say such a thing? If it wasn't for the destiny stone that I, Tang Ao, passed down, would you have awakened the destiny crepe myrtle? But so what if you've awakened the destiny crepe myrtle? You're still being stepped on by me." Facing Qin Yueshuang, Tang Ao naturally wouldn't be polite. Even though Tang Ao was severely injured, if there was only Qin Yueshuang, Tang Ao was still confident that he could kill Qin Yueshuang. "You can say whatever you want. After today, there will no longer be a person named Tang Ao in this world. Qin Yueshuang's eyes turned fierce. The primordial chaos umbrella's 10,000 golden rays gathered together, and then an extremely sharp flying dagger slowly appeared. Tang Ao felt the aura of death from this flying dagger. Moreover, Tang Ao knew that once the flying dagger solidified, he definitely wouldn't be able to dodge it. Without any hesitation, Tang Ao drew the primordial chaos sacred sky bow again. Seeing Tang Ao draw the primordial chaos sacred sky bow, Qin Yueshuang's heart tightened. She used all her strength to solidify the primordial chaos golden dagger. However, the way she had refined the primordial chaos umbrella was wrong. It wasn't easy to use the primordial chaos golden dagger. Chapter 808. This arrow consumed almost 90% of the spirit power in Tang Ao's body. Even Tang Ao's soul power was consumed by 30%. This attack also consumed 90% of the spirit power in Qin Yueshuang's body. The primordial chaos umbrella had also consumed all the primordial chaos qi. Rumble, the space seemed to be collapsing at this moment. Bang! There were continuous explosions of spirit power in the air. Kacha, kacha! Spatial cracks appeared in the surrounding space. A blood shadow condensed into Huang He's appearance at the place where Huang He had disappeared. Seeing the scene before him, Huang He cursed, "Those two madmen." Then, Huang He once again used the blood escape technique to leave. Huang He did use blood escape to escape just now, but he didn't give up. However, Huang He was unwilling to give up. Huang He knew that Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang would definitely fight. Therefore, after leaving for a while, Huang He used his blood escape technique to return. As soon as he appeared, he saw the earth-shattering collision between Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang. In such a collision, it would be difficult for the heavily injured Huang He to keep his life, let alone gain an advantage. Therefore, Huang He risked his life and used blood escape for the third time. This blood escape looked extremely powerful, but every time Huang He used it, the damage to him was immeasurable. Previously, Huang He needed 3 months to recover after using blood escape once, but he couldn't recover the 20 years of lifespan that he lost. He also obtained the Dinghai Pearl when he used blood escape last time. This time, he didn't gain any advantage, but he used blood escape 3 times in a row. This made Huang He so depressed that he almost suffered a backlash because his spirit power was not smooth. Kacha, the Shenlong Cauldron's defensive light screen, was shattered by a golden saber shadow. This was the first time the Shenlong Cauldron's defensive light screen was shattered after Tang Ao obtained it. Puchi, the golden saber shadow pierced through Tang Ao's body without slowing down. In an instant, Tang Ao's face turned pale, and his aura weakened. Tang Ao felt that his soul power was breaking free from his control, and his control over it was becoming weaker and weaker. Tang Ao's spiritual energy was also slowly dissipating at this moment. Tang Ao didn't have much spiritual energy left in his body, and it was about to dissipate completely. Tang Ao's consciousness gradually became drowsy. Tang Ao felt his eyelids become abnormally heavy, as if he would fall asleep at any time. Furthermore, his life force was also slowly flowing away. The Jade Bone Life Spirit was frantically replenishing Tang Ao's life force, but it was only able to slow down the process. However, it could not completely stop it. Am I going to die? Tang Ao couldn't help but wonder. But at this time, Luo Tsai's figure appeared in front of Tang Ao. Because of her peerless beauty, Luo Tsai was coveted by the disciples of Dragon Transformation Pavilion and was chased by the experts of Dragon Transformation Pavilion. Then, the scene flashed, and Tang Ao saw Anruosu. Anruosu had been with him for 2 lifetimes. However, Anruosu had been sucked into an incomparably huge whirlpool in the Netherworld Sea. Another scene flashed, and his father, Tang Zhan, returned to the Tang clan. After Tang Zhan learned that he had been killed by Qin Yueshuang, he went to the Qin clan to take revenge. In the end, the Tang clan was uprooted by Qin Yueshuang. One scene after another appeared in front of Yi Xian's eyes, and he had an extremely firm idea. He couldn't die. Tang Ao glanced at the Shenong cauldron, which was on the verge of collapse, and then looked at the huge whirlpool in the deepest part of the trench. For some reason, Tang Ao felt a sense of life under the whirlpool. At this thought, Tang Ao didn't hesitate to lift the Shenong cauldron and jump into the whirlpool. Chapter 809. Without the Shenong cauldron's protection, Tang Ao's body couldn't withstand the whirlpool's attack. A powerful force surged over, wanting to crush Tang Ao into pieces in an instant. But at this moment, the chaotic hexagram mirror on Tang Ao's neck glowed brightly. The chaotic primordial energy in Tang Ao's body was completely devoured by the mirror. The bronze nails in Tang Ao's body were also forced out. A barrier of light enveloped Tang Ao as he continued to fall into the depths of the whirlpool. Creak, creak, a terrifying sound came from the barrier. This was caused by the clash between the whirlpool and the chaotic hexagram mirror. Kacha, kacha, this whirlpool was some kind of treasure. The barrier released by the chaotic hexagram mirror was actually cracked by the whirlpool. At this moment, the chaotic hexagram mirror seemed to be angry. An ancient and vast pressure spread out and instantly covered the entire whirlpool. Under this pressure, the whirlpool that had been spinning for tens of thousands of years seemed to be about to stop. Luckily, the chaotic hexagram mirror didn't stop the whirlpool. Tang Ao's body left the whirlpool's range and fell into a cold hall. The chaotic hexagram mirror on Tang Ao's neck seemed to have lost its luster. Clearly, it had expended a lot of energy. But Tang Ao was unconscious and didn't know what happened next. Because of the collision between Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang, the spatial turbulence at the trench's entrance was also dispersed. The moment the space turbulence disappeared, countless martialists scrambled to jump into the trench. A violent aura rushed through the crowd. After killing 3 people, it rushed to the front of the crowd. "You're courting." The fastest cultivator saw someone run in front of him and was immediately enraged. But when he saw who it was, he immediately stopped talking and didn't say the word die. The cultivator's face was red, but no one laughed at him. Instead, they felt that he had reacted quickly. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. This was because this incomparably powerful cultivator was the head disciple of the Xiahou family, Xiahou Guangtian. In recent years, many experts had emerged from the younger generation in the Black-Yellow continent. 10 years ago, Xiahou Linyuan had swept across the younger generation and was invincible in the same realm. 10 years later, Xiahou Guangtian was the same. He had never been defeated in the same realm. Right now, Xiahou Guangtian was already at the 5th level of the life and death realm. He was publicly recognized as the strongest person in the underworld Emperor's secret realm. Not long ago, many people had personally witnessed a life and death realm 7th level Nether Sea demonic dragon being killed by Xiahou Guangtian. The Dark Sea demonic flood dragon at the 7th layer of life and death realm would only be stronger than human warriors at the same realm. In other words, even if the current Xiahou Guangtian were to face an expert at the 7th level of the life and death realm, he would still be able to fight. Who would dare to provoke such an existence? The moment Xiahou Guangtian entered the trench, he saw the shattered plaza caused by the earth-shattering collision between Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang. In the plaza, Xiahou Guangtian saw many top-grade underworld stones. With a wave of his sleeve, Xiahou Guangtian put away all the top-grade underworld stones. The people who followed behind naturally saw Xiahou Guangtian sweep away hundreds of top-grade underworld stones, but no one dared to say a single word. After sweeping away the underworld stones, Xiahou Guangtian saw a copper nail and a woman in disheveled clothes. Seeing this woman, Xiahou Guangtian also recognized her. His big brother's fiancée, Qin Yueshuang. Thinking of this, Xiahou Guangtian took off his outer clothes and threw them onto Qin Yueshuang. He then took out a pill and fed it to Qin Yueshuang. Chapter 8:10. You said that Tang Ao was here before? During this period of time, Xiahou Guangtian had been frantically searching for Tang Ao. He and Tang Ao did not have any deep enmity, but as the saying goes, an innocent man is guilty of carrying a jade ring. After finding out that Tang Ao actually had 3 divine armaments on him, Xiahou Guangtian had been searching everywhere for Tang Ao. However, no matter how Xiahou Guangtian searched, he could not find Tang Ao. But now that he heard that Tang Ao had appeared here, it would be easy to find Tang Ao. In Xiahou Guangtian's opinion, Tang Ao could not have run far in such a short period of time. Qin Yueshuang seemed to understand Xiahou Guangtian's thoughts, and said gently to Xiahou Guangtian, "Guangtian, that Tang Ao is extremely cunning. He must have taken advantage of the chaos to escape in the crowd. However, he was hit by my soul-chasing copper nail. As long as I recover from my injuries, I will be able to feel him no matter where he is." "Alright, junior sister Yushuang, heal your injuries first, and then sense where Tang Ao is. Also, you said that the sea calming pearl is in Huang He's hands?" The sea calming pearl was originally in the hands of a mysterious expert, and this person did not seem to be a martial artist from the profound Yellow Continent. Previously, Xiahou Guangtian and the other party had fought to the point where both sides were heavily injured, and they had almost died under the sea calming pearl. That was why Xiahou Guangtian was frantically searching for a suitable divine armament. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, he would still be suppressed by these warriors with divine armaments. Back then, although he had escaped with heavy injuries, the person who had fought with him seemed to have been ambushed by Huang He. Beneath the whirlpool of the trench was a cold and dark plaza. In the distance, there was a palace that was glowing with a dark light. This palace was very eerie, and just looking at it would cause one's hair to stand on end. After an unknown period of time, Tang Ao, who had fallen here, woke up. When Tang Ao woke up, he found himself lying on an ice-cold plaza. Above his head, there was a huge whirlpool spinning without changing for 10,000 years. There was a special suction force coming from the vortex, sucking in a special aura in this space. A blue light flashed in Tang Ao's eyes. Then, Tang Ao was shocked to discover that the huge vortex was absorbing a purple stream of air that was invisible to the naked eye into the vortex. As this purple stream of air continued to gather, it formed nether stones of different grades. Then, these nether stones were sprayed out by the vortex. This huge whirlpool was doing this over and over again. This whirlpool seemed to have been purposely set up here to refine nether stones for the outside world. Tang Ao did not immediately walk around in this space. Instead, he continued to observe his surroundings. Tang Ao saw the dark palace not far away, and there seemed to be something in the palace that was calling out to Tang Ao. Tang Ao smiled casually. Although this scene was a little horrifying, Tang Ao didn't care. Tang Ao took out a few elixirs from his storage ring and swallowed them, then quietly adjusted his breathing. His injuries were too serious this time. He had to recover first before considering anything else. After Tang Ao took the initiative to control the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul to heal his injuries, Tang Ao's injuries recovered extremely quickly. Due to the soul-chasing bronze nail, the wounds that the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul couldn't heal were now easily healed by the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul. However, what puzzled Tang Ao was that Tang Ao couldn't figure out how he had forced the soul-chasing bronze nail out of his body. Chapter 8:11. After recovering from his injuries, Tang Ao headed straight for the dark hall in the distance. This space was incomparably dark, and the hall in the distance didn't have a single trace of light. Although he had yet to enter the main hall, Tang Ao could feel a familiar aura coming from it. This aura was similar to the aura of the Shennong Emperor's palace. Tang Ao vaguely knew where this place was. According to the Shennong Emperor, 5 great emperors had fallen in this space, and these 5 great emperors had left behind their inheritances. The Shennong Emperor's inheritance was obtained by Tang Ao, and the inheritance left behind by Empress Yulong was obtained by Tang Yu. Other than the Shennong Emperor and Empress Yulong, the other 3 great emperors were Emperor Hao Tian, Empress Ziwei, and Emperor Hades. Tang Ao had previously come across a dilapidated ruin, but Tang Ao was too anxious to investigate it. Now that Tang Ao thought about it, the remnant that he had taken out had this indistinct sword intent. It should be the remnant of the clear heavenly emperor's inheritance. After everything here was settled, Tang Ao decided to go back and take a look. But what Tang Ao didn't know was that Lin Yuten had already obtained Emperor Hao Tian's inheritance. Back when Tang Ao left, Lin Yuten also went there. Under a coincidence, Lin Yuten received Emperor Hao Tian's inheritance. Looking at the palace in front of him, Tang Ao guessed that this was where Emperor Hades' inheritance was. Only with Emperor Hades' inheritance would there be so much netherworld energy. Even if this wasn't Emperor Hades' inheritance, this place must be closely related to Emperor Hades. After taking out the Shennong cauldron, Tang Ao walked straight towards this palace. Although this palace was strange, Tang Ao didn't feel any danger. Or rather, the owner of this palace felt that any danger was meaningless to someone who could pass through the whirlpool. More and more people arrived at the plaza below the trench. Fortunately, this place was extremely spacious. Even with more than 2,000 people in the square, it didn't seem crowded at all. The reason why everyone was gathered here was naturally because the whirlpool at the bottom of the sea was continuously producing underworld stones. After such a long time, the netherworld stones in the netherworld sea had all been plundered. When they were at the end of their rope, they didn't expect to find this trench that continuously spewed out netherworld stones. Whoosh! A whistling sound rang out, and a purplish-black top-grade nether stone flew out from the whirlpool. Upon seeing the peak-grade underworld stone, a cultivator stretched out his hand to grab it without hesitation. Seeing someone make a move, how could everyone hesitate? In an instant, 4 or 5 cultivators followed the person who made the first move to grab the peak-grade underworld stone. However, to everyone's surprise, the moment the first person touched the underworld stone, his figure strangely disappeared. Although the rest of them were puzzled, they still grabbed at the top-grade netherstone. The second martial artist who made a move immediately grabbed the top-grade netherstone. However, before he could store the top-grade netherstone in his storage ring, an extremely sharp sword light slashed him into 2 halves. As for the other martial artists who were closer, they were also killed by the martial artists behind them without hesitation. Following that, a sword light flashed, and a black-robed martial artist with a long sword on his back appeared in front of everyone. After the black-robed martial artist appeared, he grabbed the peak-grade underworld stone and kept it. Chapter 8:12. Although the nether chi that entered Tang Ao's body was extremely powerful, it was still a type of Yuan chi. After Tang Ao used the ancient god-moving sky technique, the nether chi that entered Tang Ao's body immediately turned into strands of pure spiritual power that flowed through Tang Ao's meridians. After one cycle, this pure and vast spiritual power rushed into Tang Ao's sea of soul. Tang Ao looked inside and discovered that the moment the nether chi entered his sea of soul, it would immediately be assimilated by the soul power in his sea of soul. However, as the pure spiritual power continued to rush into his sea of soul, some spiritual chi liquid droplets gradually gathered in his sea of soul. Seeing this, Tang Ao's heart shook. Immediately, Tang Ao realized that this was an opportunity of heaven and earth. Tang Ao immediately sat down cross-legged and started to use the ancient god moving sky technique to absorb and refine the nether chi. The nether chi here was extremely rich, as if it was inexhaustible. No matter how much Tang Ao absorbed and refined the nether chi here would not become thin. Under the full power of the ancient god moving sky technique, Tang Ao swept away the nether chi like a whale sucking in water. Under Tang Ao's full power cultivation, more and more spiritual chi liquid droplets gathered in his sea of soul. Gradually, they formed a small pond. Although the aura in his sea of soul was still assimilating the spiritual chi liquid droplets, the speed of assimilation was far slower than the speed of refining spiritual power. As time passed, the size of the small pond formed by the spiritual chi liquid droplets increased, and there was a faint trend of it developing into a lake. Tang Ao knew that although he was only at the first level of life and death realm, his soul power was not inferior to that of an ordinary fifth-level life and death realm warrior. However, the spiritual power in his body was only equivalent to that of a second-level life and death realm warrior. If his spiritual power could reach the same level as his soul power, then Tang Ao would be able to sweep away all warriors below the fifth-level life and death realm. Tang Ao had such an idea before, but Tang Ao felt that it was impossible to realize, so Tang Ao didn't think much about it. But now, Tang Ao's idea was obviously going to come true. There was an endless supply of netherworld energy here, and he also had a domineering technique like the ancient god moving sky technique. As long as he continued to absorb and refine the nether aura, convert it into spiritual energy and store it, soon, it would not be impossible to form a spiritual sea in his body that was equivalent to a soul sea. Above the whirlpool, everyone was still fighting. Situ Jian, could it be that all the supreme-grade netherstones belonged to you alone? The one who spoke was a white-clothed young man. Tang Ao recognized this white-clothed young man, and the two of them had even exchanged blows once before. This was because this person was Bai Zhanyuan from the Bai family. Bai Zhanyuan's current cultivation level had already risen to the third level of the life and death realm. This cultivation level was already considered not bad here. However, the person who had been fighting, Situ Jian, was a fifth-level life and death realm warrior. His cultivation level was 2 small levels higher than Bai Zhanyuan's, so Bai Zhanyuan didn't dare to directly fall out with Situ Jian. Bai Zhanyuan was rather depressed. He had originally thought that he had obtained many benefits in the underworld Emperor Mountain range. However, after knowing about the spirit transforming tower in the underworld Emperor Mountain range, Bai Zhanyuan didn't think that way anymore. This was because Murong Xiao, who had been to the spirit transforming tower, was also at the fifth-level life and death realm. Previously, he had been suppressing Murong Xiao in every aspect, but because he had missed the spirit-transforming tower, he was actually overtaken by Murong Xiao. It was said that Murong Xiao and the others had entered the heritage site of the Shennong Emperor. Back then, he also knew that a heritage site had been discovered in the underworld Emperor Mountain range, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Chapter 8:13. Tang Ao didn't lose out to you and Huang He when he was at the first level of the life and death realm? In the end, he was able to escape after a head-on clash with you while heavily injured? And the place he escaped to was under that whirlpool? Xiahou Guangtian asked Qin Yueshuang 3 questions in a row, because Qin Yueshuang's words were simply too inconceivable. Qin Yueshuang nodded her head. Tang Ao must have some big secret on him, otherwise he definitely wouldn't be able to do it to this extent. The Shennong Cauldron was the legendary treasure of the Shennong Emperor. Tang Ao's arrival at the Shennong Cauldron at least meant that Tang Ao had already obtained the inheritance of the Shennong Emperor. Rumor has it that the Shennong Emperor is a Tier 9 Pill Emperor, and the most powerful alchemist in the various sects is only a Tier 5 alchemist. Originally, Qin Yueshuang wanted to monopolize Tang Ao's belongings, but after witnessing Tang Ao's methods, Qin Yueshuang knew that she was dreaming a little too much. This time, even with her and Huang He working together, they were still unable to kill Tang Ao. On the contrary, both she and Huang He were heavily injured by Tang Ao. If she went to find Tang Ao by herself, then she wouldn't be going to kill Tang Ao to steal his treasures, but to deliver them to Tang Ao. Although Qin Yueshuang was confident that she could kill Tang Ao after using all her trump cards, who knew if Tang Ao had any trump cards? In that case, we can go down to the bottom of the whirlpool to see if Tang Ao is down there. It's just that the whirlpool is a bit powerful. Other than your primordial umbrella, there doesn't seem to be any treasure that can defend against it. Xiahou Guangtian said after thinking for a moment. Once I recover from my injuries, under the protection of the primordial umbrella, it shouldn't be a problem for me to go down into the whirlpool. But other than that, we also need to find an expert who is proficient in the power of space to prevent Tang Ao from using an escape technique after we go down. Qin Yueshuang had thought it through thoroughly. Even though she had never seen Tang Ao use an escape technique before, Qin Yueshuang had taken this into consideration. This is difficult. Among the people I know, there are no experts who are proficient in spatial energy. Xiahou Guangtian also agreed with Qin Yueshuang's idea, but there was no one in the Xiahou family who was proficient in spatial energy, and there was no one among his good friends who was proficient in spatial energy. Qin Yueshuang seemed to have been waiting for Xiahou Guangtian to say these words. After Xiahou Guangtian finished speaking, Qin Yueshuang immediately said, "My heavenly star sacred sex eldest senior brother, Qi Xingzi, is proficient in spatial sealing power. With his help, Tang Ao will not be able to escape even if he has wings." Right now, Tang Ao had entered a strange state. In this state, Tang Ao's consciousness was somewhat empty, but the speed at which Tang Ao absorbed and refined the nether aura had reached an abnormally shocking level. If an ordinary person were to absorb and refine the netherworld aura like this person, they would have long been corroded by the netherworld aura and turned into a pool of blood. However, it was different for Tang Ao. Even though Tang Ao was absorbing nether energy recklessly, no matter how much nether energy Tang Ao absorbed, the ancient god-moving sky technique could perfectly refine the nether energy into pure spiritual power. At this moment, within Tang Ao's body, his soul power was still condensed into a boundless ocean, but Tang Ao's spiritual power had shockingly formed a lake. Furthermore, the lake was still growing, and there were faint signs of it catching up to the Soul Sea. Although this lake was still a small dot in front of the vast Soul Sea, as the spirit chi liquid droplets continued to gather, the lake became bigger and bigger. Chapter 8:14. On the path of cultivation, talent and hard work were admittedly important, but opportunities were equally important. If Tang Ao hadn't risked his life to escape here, how could he have had such an opportunity? Tang Ao had a premonition that after forming a spirit sea, he would certainly reach a higher level in the future. If Tang Ao had been a little worried about whether he would be able to cultivate to the astral reaching realm in this life, then Tang Ao now had the answer in his heart. In this life, Tang Ao would not only be able to cultivate to the astral reaching realm, but he might even be able to surpass it. The astral reaching realm was not the end of the martial Tao. Shennong Emperor and Emperor Yulong were all experts above the astral reaching realm. According to Shennong Emperor, his cultivation base had reached the chaotic sky realm, which was the realm above the astral reaching realm. While Tang Ao was crazily absorbing the nether chi, a will suddenly appeared on Tang Ao's body. Subsequently, Tang Ao shockingly discovered that his soul had been brought to a special space. This space was incomparably dark, but not far from Tang Ao was a throne. On the throne sat a middle-aged man, and on both sides of him were two dark blue soul lamps. Sensing the powerful aura coming from the middle-aged man, Tang Ao already knew who he was. The man in dark blue robes before him was the master of the Underworld Emperor's secret realm, Underworld Emperor. Junior Tang Ao greets Underworld Emperor and greets Senior Underworld Emperor on behalf of my master, Shenong Emperor. Tang Ao cupped his fists and said to Underworld Emperor, "Hee, I wasn't afraid of Shenong Emperor when he was alive. Now that he has fallen, why should I be afraid? You purposely mentioned Shenong Emperor because you're afraid I'll kill you, right?" Underworld Emperor's face was expressionless as he spoke with an indifferent voice. Tang Ao didn't expect his little trick to be seen through by Underworld Emperor. Tang Ao had only come to this space with his soul power. Apart from Tang Ao's own soul, not even Primal Chaos 6 Light Realm Tang Ao could sense it. The Underworld Emperor in front of Tang Ao was different from Shenong Emperor and Emperor Yulong. Be it Shenong Emperor or Emperor Yulong, both were only remnants of a soul. However, Tang Ao could clearly sense that the Underworld Emperor in front of him was not a remnant soul, but a soul. The reason why Tang Ao had such powerful soul power was because of Tang Ao of soul. Tang Ao's soul strength was only equivalent to a second or third layer life and death realm martial artist's soul strength. Tang Ao did not think that with his soul power, he would be able to compete with the soul power of warriors above the astral reaching realm. Underworld Tion's Ao spirit, Underworld. In such a space, Underworld Emperor was the ruler of heaven and earth. It was as if a single thought from Underworld Emperor could turn him into ashes. Seeing that Tang Ao didn't speak, Underworld Emperor continued, "Although my soul still exists, I can't leave this place. As soon as I leave, I'll be sensed by an extremely powerful opponent. Although I'm in soul form, dealing with an astral-reaching martial artist is no different from squashing an ant. However, my opponent is a peak chaotic heaven realm existence. After so many years, I'm afraid he's already crossed the chaotic heaven realm." Underworld Emperor's voice was indifferent, but Tang Ao's heart was filled with raging waves. Above chaotic heaven realm? The realm after astral reaching realm was called Yin Yang realm, and after Yin Yang realm was chaotic heaven realm. As long as one's cultivation base reached chaotic heaven realm, one could be called a great emperor expert. And Underworld Emperor's opponent was in existence above chaotic heaven realm. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.